The moment I said Irie's name, Trinity Academy stopped being a building and became a battlefield. Teacher in front of her had been leaning over the table when I entered, one hand planted beside the disciplinary file, his voice sharpened into the kind of authority weak men borrow from institutions. Iri sat with both wrists locked into restraint cuffs, her uniform already creased from the struggle, her eyes fixed on him with a hatred too steady to be childish. She was not crying. That would have made things easier for the academy. A crying girl could be pitied, dismissed, redirected, processed. Iri looked like she was memorizing every face in the room, so she could decide later which one deserved to burn first. The teacher turned toward me too late. Young Master Aaron. He stood so quickly his chair scraped the floor. I did not look at him first. That was deliberate. In a room like that, attention was a weapon. If I gave it to the teacher, I would acknowledge that he mattered. If I gave it to Iri, I would mark her as the reason I came. So I looked at the restraints. Remove those. The teacher hesitated for half a second. That was all I needed. Was that unclear? I asked. No, young master. The student was physically aggressive and... Remove them. He swallowed the rest of his sentence. The restraints opened with a soft mechanical click, and Iri flexed her fingers as if she hated that her first freedom here came from a Stingray order. Hatred was cleaner than gratitude. The system message still burned in the corner of my vision. Achievement unlocked. Met the tank. Prologue complete. Main story started. I had seen enough absurd interface messages since coming into this world to know better than to treat them as jokes. The language sounded simple, almost playful, but underneath it was recognition. The world had accepted the change. Shade Wells was gone. Iri had entered. Miyu was already under my protection. Benedict had been pushed back without being removed. The Blood Wolf's root had collapsed. Somewhere under the Academy's marble floors and surveillance lines, the original narrative had stopped trying to pretend it could return to normal. That should have comforted me. Instead, it felt like a lock closing. The teacher recovered enough to speak again. Young Master Aaron, this matter concerns student discipline. If the family wishes to review the record, I can forward the relevant footage, but the Academy has procedure for cases involving assault. Procedure, I said. The word made him flinch, not because I said it loudly. I did not need to. Aaron Stingray's voice at room temperature was often more threatening than another man's shout. Yes, procedure. I walked to the file, picked it up, and turned the first page. The report had already decided what happened before the investigation began. Iri had provoked a conflict. Iri had threatened another student. Iri had disrupted orientation. Iri was unstable, combative, unsuitable for sponsor proximity. Every sentence was polished enough to hide the fingerprints. I looked at her. She stared back. No fear, no trust either, just calculation sharpened by poverty, rage, and the instinct of someone who had survived places the polished students used as insults. You are Iri, I said. Her jaw tightened. And you are Aaron Stingray. The teacher's face twitched at her tone. I almost admired her for it. Almost. Then I remembered that open defiance in the wrong room could kill her future before it began. Yes, I said. That is why you are still sitting here instead of being processed as a disposable disciplinary case. Her eyes narrowed. So I should thank you. No. That answer unsettled her more than arrogance would have. I closed the file. You should start by telling me who baited you. The teacher stiffened. Young master, the footage shows the part you intended to preserve. His mouth closed. Iri's gaze moved from him to me, sharper now. I kept my expression bored. That was important. If I looked compassionate, she would distrust me. If I looked angry on her behalf, the teacher would understand too much. So I let the room see what it expected. A corporate prince irritated that a useful object had been mishandled before he inspected it. Name, I said. Iri leaned back slightly. You care? I care that someone thought they could arrange a scene inside Trinity Academy before I finished deciding what I wanted from this place. That was close enough to the truth to be useful and ugly enough to be believable. A faint, bitter smile touched her mouth. So that is what I am, a scene. You are a student with terrible timing. I was told the academy rewards talent. It rewards usefulness. Talent is only one version of that. The teacher looked increasingly pale. His mouth had gone careful. That made him less likely to lie boldly and more likely to choose safe omissions. Safe omissions could be cut open later. I placed the report back on the table. Who was the boy? The teacher answered before Iri could. Leon Arclight, provisional candidate under Valence Industrial Support. Valence Industrial. The name fit too neatly. Not a giant on Stingray's level, but useful enough to be protected, arrogant enough to test boundaries, and stupid enough to think a fallen-born girl would make an easy sacrificial mark. In the original story, Iri's collision with the academy was supposed to reveal what she was. Not a polished elite, not a grateful scholarship pet, but a survivor with enough anger to stand in front of power and spit blood at it. The problem was that Shade should have been near the center of these early scenes. Shade was dead. So the question became simple. If I did nothing, who would the story use to keep Iri from being crushed? No one. That was the answer I hated. I turned to the teacher. Bring the full footage. We have already reviewed. Full footage, corridor audio, Android guide visual stream, student device pings, peripheral camera coverage. I want the 15 minutes before the incident and the 5 minutes after it. That level of review requires administrative authorization. Then authorize it. I do not have that authority. I looked at him properly for the first time. Then why were you comfortable recommending expulsion? The room went very still. Iri's expression changed by a fraction, not gratitude, recognition. She knew pressure when she saw it. She knew when someone had been cornered. The teacher bowed his head. I will request review. No, you will request nothing. You will send the material to Maria under my authority, and until the review is complete, Iri remains under temporary sponsor observation. Iri's chair scraped back. I did not agree to that. The spark. The teacher looked horrified. Maria, who had followed me to the door and stayed just outside the room, shifted slightly. I could feel her attention sharpen. She knew this was the moment most people would expect Aaron Stingray to punish disrespect. The original Aaron would have. A part of this body wanted to. Not because Iri's words offended me, but because command had become physical instinct. Defiance triggered something old in the blood and nerves. A cold, elegant impulse to break the resistance before the room learned it could exist. I let that impulse rise. Then I used it as a mask. No, I said, you did not. Iri stood fully now. I came here to enter the academy, not become some rich man's property. Then stop making it easy for them to remove you from the academy before you enter it. Her eyes flashed. He insulted Fallen. I know. He insulted androids who had done nothing to him. I know. He knew exactly where the cameras were. Yes. Then why are you talking like I am the problem? Because you are the only part of the problem in this room that might matter in a month. She froze. The line was cruel. It was also necessary. If I told her she was important because I knew the original story, I would expose myself. If I praised her openly, she would reject it. If I defended her too cleanly, the academy would classify her as my weakness. So I had to give her something she could hate and use at the same time. I stepped closer. You can throw your future at every insect who says the correct ugly word, or you can learn where their nest is. Her fists tightened. I do not need lessons from Stingray. No, I said, you need leverage against Stingray. Those are different things. That landed. Not because she trusted me. Because she wanted exactly that. Her hatred had direction. Find her brother. Get inside the system. Cut close enough to hurt something real. I did not know enough yet to give her answers, and even if I did, handing them over too early would not save her. It would only turn me into the next authority deciding what she was allowed to know. I turned toward the door. Maria. She entered silently. Collect the footage, all of it. If anyone edits a frame before it reaches you, treat the edit as a confession. Yes, young master. The teacher's face tightened. Is that necessary? No, I said. It is merciful. Necessary would be uglier. I walked out before the room could decide whether I had rescued Iri or claimed her. The answer, unfortunately, was both. Maria caught up with me in the corridor. You interfered directly. I noticed. She is not affiliated with us. She will be. That sounds like a decision already made. It is. By her. I stopped. Students moving down the corridor slowed when they noticed me. Conversation died in small patches. This was the other curse of Aaron Stingray's name. Privacy did not exist near me. Every pause became a public event. Every lowered voice became a rumor seed. I resumed walking. Not yet, I said. Maria's silence followed me like a drawn blade. After a moment she said, You are collecting people. That is an ugly phrasing. It is an accurate one. I glanced at her. You prefer I leave them scattered. I prefer knowing whether you are protecting them, using them, or building something the family should fear. No accusation, no raised voice, just the clean edge of her duty showing through the cloth. I should have lied smoothly. The original Aaron would have said the family did not need to understand his reasons. He would have turned loyalty into obedience and moved on. But Maria was too close to the truth for crude pressure to work forever. So I gave her a truth with the center removed. The academy is unstable. That is not new. The instability is organized. Her eyes shifted. By whom? I do not know. That at least was completely true. Maria watched me for one extra second. You expect me to accept that? No, I expect you to investigate around it without making enough noise to alert whoever moved first. Whoever moved first. Yes. Her eyes shifted with the implication, not the transmigration, not the dead reader in Shade's body, but enough. An unknown party had acted before us, and I believed that party had access to information they should not have. Maria lowered her voice. You should have told me earlier. I am telling you earlier than I wanted. That is not reassuring. It was not meant to be. We reached a junction where the corridor opened into a glass bridge overlooking Trinity's inner courtyard. Below us, students flowed between buildings like blood through polished veins. Drone shadows passed over them in precise intervals. Every person down there believed they had entered an academy. Very few understood they had entered a market where future bodies, talents, loyalties, and tragedies would be priced before they matured. I understood too much. That did not mean I understood enough. Maria's device chimed. She read the first incoming footage packet. Leon Arclight's group appears to have clustered near the android guide before Iri arrived, she said. 2 cameras lose clarity for 9 seconds. Convenient. Too clean to be accidental. Preserve the raw stream from the android. The Academy may not recognize android perception logs as primary evidence. Then we will make them regret admitting that out loud. Maria looked at me. That answer will create another political conflict. Only if they defend the boy. They will. Then we learn who benefits. Maria's silence told me she did not like that answer. Neither did I. Every move since my cure had pushed me toward the same pattern. Let enemies act. Let them expose structure. Let them reveal themselves through pressure. It was efficient. It was also cruel to the people used as bait. Miyu had already felt that. Now Iri would too. The difference was that Iri might bite the hand holding the line. I almost hoped she would. At least then I would know she still belonged to herself. By the time I returned to the sponsor viewing floor, Benedict was waiting near the private lounge with a cup he had not touched. My younger brother had the talent of looking relaxed in rooms where everyone else felt watched. It would have been impressive if I did not know how much calculation sat behind it. Aaron, he said, already involving yourself in student discipline. Already hearing about it. Trinity breathes quickly when you step on its throat. I passed him without slowing. He matched my pace. I assumed you were done for the day after humiliating me. You recovered fast. I'm a Stingray. We are expected to bleed internally. There was almost humor in his voice. Almost. He continued, the girl from Fallen is not a clean asset. I stopped at the lounge entrance. That word again. Asset. It was the language of this family, this city, this academy, a word that made people easier to move because it stripped away the screaming parts. I turned to him. She is not yours to classify. Benedict smiled. That sounds protective. It is territorial. His smile thinned. A better lie because it was uglier. If you attach your name to her, Valence Industrial will complain, he said. If you push too hard, Trinity will say you are using Academy procedure to expand Stingray influence. If you do nothing, the girl is expelled. Difficult position. You sound pleased. I sound concerned. You sound alive because I let you keep a chair you lost. His expression went still. There was the line again, the reminder under the conversation. Benedict could scheme because I allowed the environment in which he schemed to continue existing. That did not make him safe. You cannot solve every academy problem by making people afraid of you, he said. No. For a moment he seemed satisfied. Then I said, but I can solve today's. I entered the lounge and let the door close before he answered. Inside, the glass walls displayed the academy courtyard from 3 angles. The view was too clean. That was how Trinity presented itself to sponsors, elegant, controlled, inevitable. It hid the corridors where students set traps around androids. It hid the labs where Miyu had nearly collapsed before proving everyone else was too slow to stand beside her. It hid the counseling room where Iri had nearly been processed out before the main story even opened. Adam V23 pulsed in my interface. Not the old Adam, not the sickness that turned my body into a factory of metal death. The replacement layer after Pandora, rebuilt around a system I still did not fully understand. A small notification appeared. Scenario baseline altered. Central root anchor pending. I stared at those words longer than I should have. Central root anchor. That was not a reward. It was a warning wrapped in terminology. The world had recognized that Shade was gone, but the root did not simply vanish with him. It wanted weight. It wanted a center. If I refused to act, the story might choose the next available force. A hidden transmigrator, a corporate heir, a broken antagonist, a girl like Iri thrown into pressure without support, a genius like Miyu dragged into exploitation. Or me. Especially me. I closed the message. Maria entered after a brief delay. Leon Arclight has already contacted his sponsor representative, she said. Of course he has. Valence Industrial is requesting that the incident be handled internally without outside sponsor interference. Outside sponsor interference. Yes. Send them a reply. What should it say? That Stingray has no interest in interfering with an internal academy matter, provided the academy confirms in writing that coordinated harassment, edited surveillance gaps, and discriminatory provocation against a scholarship candidate are now considered internal discipline beneath sponsor review. Maria's fingers paused over the device. That will force them to either escalate or retreat. Yes. If they escalate, it becomes public enough to involve the academy board. Yes. If they retreat, Iri remains protected under the shadow of our inquiry. Yes. She sent the message. Then she said, you planned that before entering the counseling room. I planned several versions. And the version where Iri refused your protection. She already did. That was not refusal, that was anger. Maria, anger is often the only form of refusal people can afford. Her eyes moved toward me. That had sounded too much like the person behind Aaron Stingray. I corrected with coldness. Do not mistake her tone for freedom. If she wants to stay in Trinity, she has limited options. I am one of them. Maria accepted the correction outwardly. I hated how relieved part of me felt. A few minutes later, Miyu arrived at the lounge door with the cautious horror of someone who had been told she was allowed into a place where all the furniture cost more than her old lab. She stopped just inside. "I was told you called me." "I did." Her eyes flicked to Maria, then to the glass walls, then to the nearest exit. "Is someone dead?" "No." "Then why did you call me to sponsor lounge?" "Because if someone was dead, I would not make you climb stairs first." She stared at me. Maria stared at me too. The joke was bad. Worse, it helped. Miyu's shoulders lowered by a fraction. I placed a sealed data drive on the table. "I need you to inspect this footage for manipulation." Her fingers twitched toward it before her fear caught up. Footage. Corridor incident, student harassment, possible camera interference. I do machines, not legal things. This is machine work pretending to be legal work. That got her attention. She moved closer despite herself. What kind of interference? 2 camera gaps. Android guide stream may have the cleanest peripheral log. I need confirmation before Valence has time to bury it. Miyu took the drive like it might bite her. If the Academy system flags my access. It will not. Maria will give you a temporary sponsor review shell. Maria's expression tightened. You are giving her access to sponsor evidence. I am giving our best technician a task suited to her ability. Miyu went still at the word best. Her face turned slightly red. That is manipulative, she said. Yes. It is working. I know. Maria looked between us, as if watching 2 people exchange coded weapons badly disguised as conversation. Miyu clutched the drive. Who is the student? Iri. She blinked. The girl from the disciplinary alert. You saw it. Everyone saw some version of it. People are talking. What are they saying? That she is violent, that she bowed to an android like it was a person, that she comes from Fallen, that she threatened a Valence candidate. Miyu's voice got smaller as she listed each rumor, as if the words themselves were dirty. And what do you think? I asked. She looked surprised. I think people are cruel when they feel safe in groups. A good answer. A painful one. Then find out who made them feel safe. Miyu looked down at the drive. What happens if I prove the footage was manipulated? Then Iri stays. And if I cannot? Then I make them afraid to expel her without proof. Miyu's mouth tightened. So either way, you already decided. Yes. Does she know? Not yet. She will hate that. She already hates me. That is not the same. Miyu's voice was quiet but firmer than it had been a month ago. That mattered. The Academy had terrified her, yes. Public attention still made her flinch. But beneath the panic, something had changed since the hidden lab. She could challenge me now. Not loudly, not cleanly, but enough. I looked at her and remembered the girl curled among machines, nearly dying of fear when I said her name. You are right, I said. Miyu froze. Maria's gaze sharpened again. I continued before the room made too much of it. I will speak to her. Miyu hugged the drive closer. Before or after you finish arranging her life. The old Aaron's instinct stirred again. Sharp. Cold. Punish the insolence, reassert structure, make the room remember hierarchy. Instead, I let the corner of my mouth move. During, apparently. Miyu looked frightened by her own courage. Then she nodded once and left with the drive. Maria waited until the door closed. She is becoming less afraid of you. That was the intention. Was it? I did not answer. Outside the lounge, the Academy continued moving as if nothing important had happened. That was how institutions survived. They swallowed disruptions, renamed them incidents, and kept the schedule intact. But under the surface, lines were tightening. Valence had moved through a student. Benedict was watching for weakness. Maria was watching me. Miyu was learning to question the cage, even while helping build it. Iri was now inside the edge of my influence, and would probably try to stab her way back out. And somewhere else in Trinity, another informed hand had searched for heavenly weight pendulum before I secured it. That last fact mattered most. The hidden player was not reckless like the one who died in Shade's body. This one understood timing, value, and restraint. They had looked for a future important module quietly, during the confusion around Academy entry. They had moved not like a fan grabbing treasure, but like someone setting up a route. That meant I could no longer assume I was merely protecting the story from collapse. I was in competition with someone else trying to rewrite it. The difference was that I still did not know their face. They might already know mine. I found Iri again in a temporary waiting room that looked too clean for the kind of anger inside it. Trinity Academy had designed the space to calm important parents and isolate troublesome students. Soft walls, sound dampening, neutral lighting, no sharp edges, no visible cameras. The kind of room that told you the institution had needed to contain fear often enough to make containment comfortable. Iri stood by the window instead of sitting. That told me enough. A person who sits accepts the room for a while. A person who stands keeps one foot in escape. She did not turn when I entered. "Did they send you to make me behave?" she asked. "No." "Then why are you here?" "To make sure you understand the shape of the trap before you step into the next one." That made her turn. Her eyes moved over me with open hostility, not the social fear most students showed, not the automatic deference of people raised around corporate names. Iri looked at me like a locked gate, not because she thought she could knock me down, but because she refused to pretend the gate was sacred. "I know what a trap looks like." "No," I said. "You know what an insult looks like. You know what bait sounds like. You know what a camera catches when someone wants the cleanest version of your anger. That is not the same as understanding the full trap." She crossed her arms. "Then explain it, Stingray." The name came out like an accusation. "Fair. Leon Arclight is protected by Valence Industrial. Valence does business with Trinity through equipment contracts and candidate sponsorship. The Academy does not want a public fight between a lower district scholarship candidate and a sponsor-backed student. The easiest solution is to remove the person with less institutional weight." "Me?" "Yes. And you care because in another version of the story, you were supposed to be one of the people who could stand between the world and collapse. Because Shade is dead, and the story is already chewing through the people who were supposed to matter. Because you hated Stingray before you ever met me, and if I handle you carelessly, I may create the enemy the original plot never needed you to become. I said because removing you benefits the wrong people." She laughed once. It was not humor, it was a scraped sound. "So I am useful." "Yes. At least you admit it. You would not believe me if I led with kindness. I would not believe you if you led with anything. Keep that." Her expression flickered. I moved to the opposite side of the table, but did not sit. "If you stay at Trinity, you will hear worse than what Leon said. Some will say it because they are stupid. Some will say it because they want to measure how fast you break. A few will say it because someone told them exactly where to press. If you answer every insult with your fists, you will be processed out before you reach the people you actually want." Her face hardened. "You do not know what I want. I know you did not come here for prestige." The room cooled. She went very still. That was dangerous. I had touched the truth too directly. I adjusted before the silence sharpened into suspicion I could not control. "People who come here for prestige look at the gates like they are entering a palace," I said. "You looked at them like they were a wall you planned to climb." That was inference, safe enough. Her eyes narrowed anyway. "You watch people too closely. I am alive because of it. People like you are alive because everyone else pays for it." No hesitation, no polished academy language, no corporate euphemism. Iri did not accuse Stingray like a student repeating slogans. She accused it like someone had counted the bodies. The original Aaron would have crushed the conversation there. I let it continue. "You are not wrong often enough to be dismissed," I said. That made her angrier. Do not talk like you are being generous. I am not. Then what are you doing? Offering you a path that keeps you inside Trinity long enough to aim your anger properly. She stared at me. And the price? Temporary placement under my special class review. No. Fast expected. I did not move. You do not know the terms. I heard Stingray. Then you heard the part that keeps the Academy from throwing you away today. I would rather be thrown out than owned. No, you would rather believe those are the only two options because it makes refusal clean. Her hand hit the table. Do not pretend you know me. I know enough to know you came here with unfinished business. Her anger vanished from her face. Not softened, hidden. The temperature in the room dropped another degree. My mistake was obvious this time. I had been too precise again. The original story lived in my head like a map, but in conversation, every correct step left footprints where no one should have walked. Iri's voice went low. What did you say? I said you are not here for school. No, after that. I said unfinished business. How would you know that? Because people with nothing to resolve do not look at institutions like they want to cut them open. She watched me for a long moment. Then she leaned back. Not convinced. Delayed. That was enough. My offer is simple, I said. Special class review gives you time, access, and protection from immediate expulsion. It does not make you my subordinate. That is a lie. It makes you publicly associated with me. That is not the same as obedience. To everyone else it is. Yes. Then it is a chain. It is armor shaped like a chain. She hated that answer. I could see it. I hated it too. But I did not have a cleaner one that kept her alive, enrolled, and close enough to protect from whoever had already started touching key roots. Iri looked toward the window. Outside, the academy courtyard glittered under the afternoon light. Students crossed between buildings in neat streams, uniforms perfect, futures already half-owned. Somewhere down there, Leon Arclight was probably learning the first lesson rich cowards learned after causing trouble, how quickly sponsors turn guilt into paperwork. Iri's voice changed. What happens to him? Leon. She nodded once. If the footage confirms manipulation, he loses clean standing and Valence has to decide whether he is worth defending publicly. And if they defend him, then I make them defend everything he said. Her jaw tightened. That is not enough. No. It should hurt. Yes. The answer caught her off guard. I continued, but pain without position is usually wasted. If you want to hurt people who hide behind walls, get inside the wall first. Her eyes returned to me. You are very comfortable sounding like a villain. I have a natural face for it. For half a second, something almost like amusement cut through her anger. Then it was gone. Why me, she asked. The simplest question. The most dangerous. Because I knew what she was supposed to become. Because the system called her the tank. Because the main story had officially begun the moment I found her. Because if I left her alone, the Academy would either break her, weaponize her, or hand her to the next person who understood her value. I said because when they tried to make you lower your head, you chose the wrong moment to raise it. That is inconvenient. I prefer inconvenient people where I can see them. She studied me. That is your recruitment line. That was my warning. And the recruitment line. You want access to places that would rather erase you. I can open doors. You want answers powerful people are not going to hand you because you ask nicely. I can make them nervous enough to misstep. You want to stay yourself while walking through a place designed to sand people down into useful shapes. I cannot promise that, but I can promise I will not require you to look grateful while you try. The room went quiet. For the first time, her anger did not have an immediate direction. That was when the door opened. Maria stood there. Valence has responded. Iri's posture tightened instantly. I looked at Maria. And They deny prior coordination and request a closed review before Academy administration. Did they mention the footage? They claim the primary footage is sufficient. Of course they do. Maria's gaze shifted to Iri, then back to me. Miyu has already found irregularities. Iri looked up sharply. Miyu. A technician, I said. A Stingray technician. Not originally. I heard the weight in my own answer. Iri heard it too. You collect people from the places your family damages. Maria's eyes moved to me. The room waited for Aaron Stingray to punish the accusation. I did not. I collect people other people are stupid enough to underestimate. Iri's mouth tightened. That is not a denial. No. A person trying to look innocent would have denied it. A person trying to survive, as Aaron Stingray could not afford innocence. I turned to Maria. Set the review. It will happen within the hour if you push. Good. That gives Miyu very little time. She needs very little time when someone else is worse than her. Maria almost looked tired. You are shameless with praise when it serves you. It works on her. From the doorway behind Maria came a small, offended voice. I heard that. Miyu appeared with a tablet clutched to her chest, hair slightly disordered, eyes bright with the particular irritation that came from solving a problem while resenting the person who gave it to her. Iri looked her over. Miyu looked back and immediately lost half her confidence. The contrast was almost painful. Iri's anger filled rooms before she spoke. Miyu's brilliance tried to hide behind her own shoulders until machines gave her permission to exist. In the original story, they would have orbited shade in different ways, shaped by his choices, softened or sharpened through his root. Now they were looking at each other because of me. That was not a comforting thought. Miyu raised the tablet slightly. I found the gap. Iri's eyes narrowed. What gap? The cameras were not simply unclear. Someone forced a routine privacy blur through a maintenance layer, but they did it badly. Maria took one step closer. Badly how? They only masked the main Academy cameras. They forgot the Android guide stores route stabilization data for balance correction. Iri blinked. The Android saw it. Not saw. Recorded movement confidence, sound source position, environmental pressure changes, body vector shifts, and reflected visual fragments from service glass. Iri stared. Miyu shrank. Sorry, it is like seeing but messier. I almost smiled. Can you reconstruct it? I asked. Enough. Leon's group moved first. They clustered around the guide. One student stood where the camera gap would cover his mouth. Leon changed position only after confirming the angle. The audio is damaged, but the android picked up enough phoneme fragments to prove the fallen insult came before Iri's threat. Iri looked down. For the first time since I entered the waiting room, something other than anger crossed her face. Not relief. Worse. The pain of being believed only after a machine proved what she already knew. Miyu's eyes dropped to Iri's hands, and her voice softened. I can show them. Iri's head lifted. You would do that? Miyu looked startled. Yes. Why? Miyu hesitated. Because Aaron asked me would have been the frightened answer. Because it is right would have been the heroic one. Miyu found something smaller and better. Because they used the android's presence while assuming no one would care what it recorded. Iri's eyes changed. I saw it reach her. Not through kindness, through shared offense. That could hold. A bridge did not have to be warm to hold weight. Maria glanced at me. You have your evidence. No, I said. We have a knife. Evidence becomes useful when someone else bleeds from denying it. Iri looked at me with renewed suspicion. Miyu looked worried. Maria looked like she had expected nothing better. Perfect. If they all distrusted me for different reasons, at least none of them were asleep. The closed review took place in a conference room built for polite executions. Valence sent one representative, a thin man with soft hands, silver glasses, and the expression of someone who had converted morality into liability categories years ago. Trinity sent two administrators. Leon Arclight sat between them in fresh uniform, face carefully arranged into victimized composure. He had the kind of fear that only appeared when consequences finally stopped belonging to other people. Benedict attended as acting academy-side figurehead. Of course he did. He gave me a look when I entered that said he knew I had dragged him into a trap and hated that he could not yet identify its shape. Iri stood behind my right shoulder, not because she wanted to, but because I had told her where to stand and she had decided refusing in front of Valence would help them more than her. Miyu sat near the display terminal, visibly wishing she could become part of the furniture. Maria remained by the door. That left me at the table's center. The Valence representative began first. This is an unfortunate misunderstanding between new students. Valence Industrial has no desire to intensify a matter that could be resolved with mutual apology and behavioral guidance. Mutual, I said. He smiled. A healthy academy environment requires all students to recognize how quickly tensions can escalate. I looked at Leon. Apologize. The boy's face flickered. The representative's smile tightened. Young Master Aaron, I believe a mutual process. I did not ask for your preferred ritual. I told him to apologize. Leon glanced at the representative. Wrong move. Everyone saw it. Iri saw it most of all. I leaned back. Interesting. Benedict's eyes sharpened. The representative recovered. Leon was instructed not to speak until all parties had settled on appropriate language. Of course he was. I gestured to Miyu. Show them. Miyu froze for a heartbeat under the room's attention, then her fingers moved. The display lit with corridor footage, then broke into layered reconstructions. Camera angle, android guide position, audio fragments, movement overlays, timing marks. It was not cinematic. It was better, cold, technical, difficult to bully. Miyu's voice trembled at first. The main camera loses clarity here. The system labels it as a privacy blur, but no authorized privacy request was entered through the Academy registry. The trigger comes from a maintenance handshake routed through a student access terminal. The Trinity administrator on the left stiffened. That should not be possible. It is possible if someone has partial access to old service protocols, Miyu said. Then, more quietly, or if the system is badly maintained. I almost admired the attack. Trinity did not. She continued before fear could stop her. The blur hides the mouth movement, but the Android guide's route data records Leon changing position after checking the camera line. The audio reconstruction is incomplete, but these fragments align with the insult Iri reported. The room listened. Leon's face went pale. The Valence representative adjusted his glasses. Reconstructed fragments are not direct evidence. Miyu flinched. I spoke before she could shrink. Then deny them. I am saying they are interpretive. Good, deny them directly. The man looked at me. Pardon? Say the reconstruction is false. Say your candidate did not coordinate camera interference. Say he did not provoke a fallen-born student with discriminatory language while other students positioned themselves to enjoy the result. He did not answer. Because a lie spoken generally can escape. A lie nailed to a specific record becomes evidence later. Benedict looked away, and I caught the smallest hint of reluctant appreciation on his face. The shape of the trap had reached him. I was not proving the entire case. I was making denial expensive. The representative folded his hands. Valence Industrial does not endorse discriminatory language. That was not what I asked. We are prepared to recommend formal apology and conduct correction. Still not what I asked. His jaw tightened. I looked at Leon. The boy's throat moved. Apologize, I said again. This time, no one saved him. He stood halfway, stiff with humiliation. I apologize for my language. Iri did not move. Her face was carved from stone. And for attempting to provoke you under altered camera coverage, I said. Leon's eyes widened. The Valence representative said, Young Master Aaron, that phrasing implies intent beyond what has been established. Then establish it. Silence. I let it sit until everyone felt it. Benedict finally spoke. As acting liaison, I recommend provisional disciplinary measures against Leon Arclight, pending technical review of the access route. The representative turned toward him. Benedict. Benedict smiled faintly. Not kindly. My role requires that I preserve Academy integrity. The trap locked. He hated me, but he was not stupid enough to stand on the losing side of exposed manipulation. By leaving him his chair, I had forced him to defend the institution in a way that served my move. If he protected Valence now, he looked weak and corrupt. If he sided with procedure, he validated my intervention. Either way, he spent his authority reinforcing a structure I needed. Iri saw only part of it. Maria saw more. The Valence representative went quiet. The review ended without drama because real power often avoided dramatic defeat. Leon was placed under formal investigation. Valence withdrew its request for mutual apology. Trinity promised system audit without admitting fault. Iri received provisional protection under special class review, which everyone carefully avoided calling Aaron Stingray's protection, even though that was exactly how the room understood it. When we left, Iri did not thank anyone. Miyu looked exhausted. Benedict waited until the others had moved ahead before speaking to me. You used my position very neatly. You kept it for a reason. So I am furniture now. Furniture does not complain this much. His smile was thin. You could have warned me. I wanted your honest reaction. You mean my fear? That too. He looked through the glass wall toward Iri, who stood alone near the corridor bend, as if even temporary safety felt insulting. She will be trouble. Yes. She hates us. She has reasons. Benedict looked back at me. That sounds almost sympathetic. Do not mistake understanding for softness. I rarely mistake you for softness. For a moment, we stood beside each other like brothers in the technical sense only. Same family name, same inheritance machine, different positions inside it. Benedict wanted to survive my shadow. I wanted to use his ambition without letting it devour anyone critical. Neither of us trusted the other. That made us very Stingray. He said, if you keep gathering people who hate the family, someone above us will ask whether you are building a class or a weapon pointed inward. They will ask regardless. And when they do, I will tell them the truth. Benedict laughed softly. That would be new. I will tell them Trinity is full of unstable talent, rival corporate movement, and unknown interference. Concentrating useful candidates under monitored scholarship authority is more efficient than leaving them to be stolen. His amusement faded. That is not the whole truth. No. You really have changed. People keep saying that like they expect me to apologize. I expect you to explain eventually. I looked at him. No, Benedict, you expect me to reveal a weakness eventually. Those are different things. His eyes hardened. Maybe. Be patient. If one appears, you can try to reach it before Maria does. That struck him exactly where I wanted. Because Benedict was not the only one watching for cracks. Maria stood farther down the corridor, speaking quietly with Miyu, but her attention was still on me. Always on me. Always careful. Always one revelation away from deciding whether Aaron Stingray had become too dangerous to be allowed to continue. Benedict followed my gaze. You are afraid of your own attendant. Fear is too simple. Then what is it? Respect for a loaded gun facing an uncertain direction. He smiled again, but this time it did not reach his eyes. You surround yourself with dangerous women. I surround myself with people who matter. Same thing in this city. He left before I could answer. Unfortunately, he was not wrong. That night, the special class list became official. Not public in the broad academy sense. Not yet. Trinity loved staged releases and controlled hierarchy too much to simply announce a cluster of high-risk candidates without preparing the political ground. But inside the sponsor network, the first version existed. Miyu, Iri, several names under observation. A few blanks I intended to fill before someone else did. And above all of it, my name is sponsor authority. Aaron Stingray, the villain who was not supposed to survive long enough to attend. The family heir who had cured an impossible disease. The sponsor who had humiliated Benedict without removing him. The man who had taken a fallen-born disciplinary problem and turned her into a protected candidate before the academy could expel her. If hidden players were watching, the message was no longer subtle. I know where the main cast should gather. I know the original route is broken. I am moving first. Come carefully. That was the problem with threats. Sometimes they worked. Sometimes they summoned exactly what they warned. Near midnight, Maria delivered the second problem. She entered my temporary academy office without waiting for permission. That alone told me enough. We found another access trace around the heavenly weight pendulum search. I looked up from the class list. Confirmed. Not fully, but someone queried maintenance maps, old storage indices, and camera blind spots in the same wing you searched. When? Before you secured the module. That meant they had missed it. Or left it. Both possibilities were ugly. Student account. No faculty shell. That made the room feel smaller. A teacher. Or someone using teacher-level credentials. Can you trace it? Only to a temporary routing node inside Trinity. Convenient. Too convenient, she said. We were using that phrase too often. I leaned back. The office window reflected my face against the city lights beyond the academy walls. Aaron Stingray's face looked calm, elegant, untouched. A face built for portraits, threats, and funerals attended by people who had arranged the death. Inside, I was tired. Not physically. Pandora had made my body frighteningly efficient compared to the dying shell I first inhabited. My lungs no longer filled with metal. My muscles no longer trembled after walking across a room. Pain was no longer the weather of my existence. But the absence of pain had created a new problem. Now there was nothing forcing me to stop. Prepare a false access path, I said. Maria's eyes narrowed. To what? To something that looks like special class candidate medical records. That would be highly sensitive. Exactly. You want them to try again. I want to know what they want badly enough to risk touching. If they are after Miyu, this exposes her. The path will not lead to Miyu. Then where? To Shade Wells. Maria went still. That name had weight now. Not only because of the corpse, not only because of the blood wolves, but because I had used Shade as part of my official lie. Anonymous email, dead protagonist, hidden technician, a cover story designed to protect Miyu and confuse enemies. Now I would use the dead again. Maria said, explain. The unknown player already searched for a module tied to future importance. That means they know root value. If they see a protected archive linked to Shade Wells, they may assume it contains what he left behind. And if they do not, then we learn they are not interested in Shade. And if they are, we trace the hand. Maria's expression did not change, but her voice lowered. You are using a dead boy as bait. A dead transmigrator. The word almost slipped. I caught it too late. Maria heard the shape of the correction, even if she did not understand it. Her eyes sharpened. A dead what? I held her gaze. A dead anomaly. That is not what you were going to say. No. The office became very quiet. There are moments in survival where a lie is worse than an unanswered question. A lie gives the other person something to attack, Silence only gives them hunger. Maria's loyalty was not to me. Not completely. Her loyalty was to the Stingray group, to the structure that made her, armed her, named her service and purpose. If I gave her the wrong truth, she might decide I had become a contamination risk. If I gave her too little, she might reach the same conclusion through suspicion. So I chose the narrow path. Shade Wells was not acting like the original Shade Wells should have acted. Maria did not move. You knew the original. Not personally. Then how would you know how he should act? Pattern analysis. That is insufficient. Yes. You are admitting that. I am admitting you will not like the answer yet. Her hand remained at her side, nowhere near a weapon. That meant nothing. Maria's entire body was a concealed weapon. You are asking me to build a trap around information you refuse to define. Yes. For what purpose? To keep the special class alive long enough for me to know which threats are real. The family will want details. The family can want quietly. And if they demand, then you decide how much of me you intend to protect before you decide how much of me you intend to report. Her expression changed. Barely. But it changed. That was the first time I had forced the question into the room between us plainly. Not loyalty to Stingray, not loyalty to Erin's title, her decision about me. For a moment, I thought I had pushed too hard. Then Maria said, I will prepare the false path. I nodded. She turned to leave. At the door she stopped. Young master. Yes. If I decide you are a danger to the family, I will not warn you first. I looked back at the city lights. I know. And if I decide the family is a danger to what you are building. That made me turn. Maria did not look at me when she said it. That was the only reason I knew the question cost her something. I do not know what I will do then, she finished. The door closed behind her. For several seconds, I did not move. That was the closest thing to trust Maria had given me. It was also a warning that she was beginning to see the shape of the contradiction before I was ready. I looked back at the special class list. Miyu, Iri, names to be found, names to be protected, names to be watched. The original protagonist's route had been a story about gathering allies through courage, growth, and a center of hope. Mine was becoming something else. Surveillance, leverage, false archives, political traps, fear used as shelter. I told myself it was necessary. The frightening part was that I was probably right. The false archive was touched before morning. Maria sent the notification to me at 04:17, which meant the person behind the access either did not sleep or did not believe anyone dangerous would watch the academy systems that closely during the first night. Both possibilities were informative. The access did not come through the obvious route. No student account, no direct faculty shell this time. The hand moved through an old maintenance mirror buried inside Trinity's disabled dormitory allocation system, then slipped sideways into the sponsor review layer where Maria had placed the bait. It was careful, patient, and wrong in a way only someone with partial future knowledge could be wrong. They knew there was value around Shade Wells. They did not know the corpse had already been stripped of anything simple. They did not know I had left the name there like blood in water. Maria stood beside my desk while the trace unfolded across the wall display. They opened the archive for 12 seconds, she said. Enough to read the visible labels. Yes, then they withdrew. Did they take anything? Only the decoy index. Useful. Maria looked at me. You expected that. I hoped for it. The display showed the path in fragments, routing node, mirror credential, internal ghost signature, no name, no face, no simple answer. Whoever it was, they knew enough to avoid grabbing the whole file but not enough to realize the index itself was the hook. Maria highlighted the withdrawal route. They burned the path behind them. Professionally. Not professionally, narratively. I looked at her. She seemed to realize what she had said only after hearing herself. A strange word for Maria. A word she had learned from listening to me too carefully. Narratively, I repeated. Her mouth tightened. They erased the path in a way that suggests they expected certain logs to matter and ignored others that actually do. Like someone who knows how a security event should be discovered in a simplified record, not how Trinity's systems truly preserve damage. That was more useful than a name. The hidden player was not a professional operator inside the world. They were someone applying story logic to real infrastructure, smarter than Shade's possessor, more cautious, but still infected by the same dangerous assumption every reader carried in a world like this. If you know the plot, you think you know reality. Reality disagrees with a knife. Can you follow the ignored logs? I asked. Partially, they point toward the academic residential wing. Student then. Likely, or someone using student proximity. Keep it quiet. Maria's eyes narrowed. I assumed as much. No quieter than that, no Stingray sweep, no official inquiry, no pressure through Benedict. If they feel a net, they vanish. And if they approach Miyu or Iri before we identify them, then we let them see enough teeth to reconsider. That is not a plan. It is the space before one. Maria's eyes made it clear she did not like that. Neither did I. The problem with an unknown opponent was not that they might be strong. Strength could be measured. Influence could be mapped. Money could be followed. The real danger was motive. A hidden reader might want survival, power, revenge, possession of favorite characters, correction of the plot, destruction of the plot, or simply the thrill of being important in a world that once existed only on a screen. Shade's possessor had wanted too much too fast. This one had learned caution. That made them worse. At 06:00, Trinity's official day began. At 06:05, the special class received its first internal summon. I scheduled it early on purpose. Students from power were used to being accommodated. Students from desperation were used to losing sleep. I wanted to know who arrived angry, who arrived afraid, who arrived prepared, and who arrived already performing. Miyu arrived 7 minutes early with dark circles under her eyes and a tablet full of more analysis than I had asked for. She chose the seat farthest from the door, then changed her mind and moved to the one nearest the equipment wall. Machines made her feel safer than exits. I filed that away with all the other details I hated myself for needing. Iri arrived exactly on time and did not sit. That was also expected. Maria stood behind me. Benedict attended remotely through an Academy liaison panel because he claimed administrative obligations. In reality, he wanted to observe without giving me the satisfaction of watching him react in person. I left his screen active. Let him watch. The room itself had once been a high-tier project lab. Trinity had stripped it down and reassigned it after a sponsor dispute, which made it perfect. Enough equipment for Miyu to breathe. Enough open space for Iri to refuse comfort. Enough surveillance for Maria to feel useful. Enough official ambiguity for me to claim it as temporary without explaining the long-term structure. I stood at the front and looked at the two confirmed anchors of my broken route. A genius who wanted to hide. A fighter who wanted to break something. The original protagonist was supposed to bring people like this together through warmth, necessity, and the slow miracle of trust. I had a locked room, a family name, a system warning, and a dead hero behind me. We all used what we had. This class does not exist publicly yet, I said. Iri crossed her arms. Then we are not students, we are secrets. Temporary secrets. That is not better. It is more accurate. Miyu raised her hand halfway, then seemed embarrassed by the gesture and lowered it. What are we supposed to do here? Survive Trinity. Iri's mouth twisted. I thought this was an academy. It is, that is why survival comes first. Benedict's voice came through the panel, smooth with false patience. Aaron, perhaps an official explanation would help. The students are adjusting to a complex environment. I looked at the screen. Do not use administrative language with me before breakfast. Miyu almost choked. Iri looked briefly amused despite herself. Benedict smiled tightly. As acting liaison, I am merely suggesting that we clarify scope. Fine scope. I turned back to the room. You are here because each of you is valuable enough that someone will eventually try to use you, remove you, recruit you, or break you. Trinity will call that education. Sponsors will call it development. Rivals will call it competition. I call it inefficient if I do not see it coming. Iri's eyes sharpened. So you are honest about using us? Yes. Miyu looked down. That hurt more than I expected. I continued anyway. I will use your talents. I will also make it very expensive for other people to use you without my permission. Iri stepped forward. I do not belong to you. No, and if you force me to repeat that in every room for the next month, I will become bored. The issue is not ownership. The issue is visibility. Right now, without structure, you are easy to isolate. Miyu can be pressured through technical dependency and social fear. You can be provoked through class contempt and your connection to Fallen. Any one of the sponsor groups can target you separately and make it look like ordinary academy friction. Here, that becomes harder. Because of you. Yes. And if you are the threat, then you are already in the correct room to learn that early. Silence. Maria's gaze moved to the back of my head. Benedict's screen flickered, as if he had shifted too quickly out of frame. Iri studied me. You are either arrogant enough to be stupid or careful enough to be dangerous. Both have kept me alive. Miyu spoke softly. Are there others? I looked at her. Others? People you want to bring here? Yes. The answer sat behind my teeth with names attached, characters who should have met shade, people whose roots could bend wrong if left unattended, future allies, future disasters, possible victims, possible hidden readers. I knew too many shadows and too few confirmed current positions. Eventually, I said. Iri heard the caution. You do not know where they are. I know where some should be. Should? Yes. That word carried the broken story between us. Miyu's fingers tightened around her tablet. Benedict spoke again. Aaron, perhaps we should avoid suggesting uncertainty to provisional candidates. Benedict. Yes. Mute yourself before I make this class's first exercise, identifying useless interference. The panel went silent. Miyu stared at the table with heroic effort not to laugh. Iri did laugh, once sharp and brief. That small sound changed the room more than any speech could have. Not warmth, not trust, but pressure released in the right direction. I seized it. First rule, nothing that happens in this room leaves it without my permission or Maria's. Iri's face hardened again. So secrecy. Containment. Same cage, cleaner word. Second rule, I said, ignoring the challenge because answering every objection would make her the rhythm setter. You report any unusual contact, sponsor offers, threats, sudden kindness, rumors tied to Shade Wells, Pandora, Corpse Eater, Heavenly Weight Pendulum, Blood Wolves, or the special class. Miyu went pale at several of the names. Iri caught that. What are those? Things people may want for the wrong reasons. That explains nothing. It explains what you need today. You really think people obey when you speak like that? Most people do. I am not most people. I know that is why you are here. She looked away first. Not defeat. Adjustment. Third rule, I said. If someone baits you, assume the bait matters more than the insult. If someone flatters you, assume the hook matters more than the praise. If someone threatens you openly, look for the person who benefits from your reaction. Trinity is not testing your pride. It is testing who can purchase it. Miyu swallowed. That sounds exhausting. It is. Is there any rule that is not depressing? I considered. No dying without permission. She stared. Iri stared. Maria closed her eyes for half a second. Benedict's muted panel showed him covering his mouth. It was a terrible line. It worked anyway. Miyu whispered, "That is not funny." It was not intended to be. It was a little funny, Iri said. Miyu looked betrayed. The room was not safe. But for one breath, it was alive. Then Atom V23 pulsed again. New root cluster recognized. Special class provisional anchor formed. Threat convergence probability increased. I kept my face still. The system had confirmed what I already feared. Gathering them helped stabilize the root. It also made them a target. Every solution created its own attack surface. Maria caught the pause. Problem? Soon? Iri's eyes narrowed. What does that mean? It means the fourth rule just became urgent. I walked to the wall display and opened the Academy's internal incident map, public disciplinary events, sponsor complaints, maintenance anomalies, dormitory access errors. Most students would see noise. I saw pressure points. Someone had touched the false shade archive. Someone had searched for heavenly weight pendulum. Someone had used old maintenance protocols to cover Leon's provocation. Not necessarily the same person, but overlapping irregularities in the first 48 hours of Academy activation were not coincidence. Fourth rule, I said, when something feels like coincidence, tell me before you decide it is harmless. Iri studied the map. You think the incident with Leon was connected to something bigger. I think convenient cruelty is often still cruelty, but it becomes more useful when someone times it well. That is not an answer. It is the answer I have. Miyu raised her tablet. The privacy blur used old maintenance protocols. The false archive access also used old maintenance mirrors. The structure is different, but the age of the protocol layer is similar. Maria looked at her. You found that already. Miyu shrank. It was obvious. No, Maria said, it was not. Miyu's face flushed again. Iri glanced between them. So the shy one is terrifying with machines. Miyu nearly dropped her tablet. I am not terrifying. You proved a rich boy staged harassment using Android balance data. That is not terrifying. That is basic reconstruction. To you. I watched them carefully. There, another bridge, rougher this time, built from anger and technical absurdity. In the original route, Shade would have been the emotional center connecting them. Without him, I had assumed I would have to force every connection myself. Maybe that was arrogance. Maybe people still found each other through the cracks, even under my shadow. Then my device chimed. A message from Benedict. Unmute me if the children are finished bonding over criminal procedure. I almost deleted it. Instead, I unmuted him. You have one sentence. Benedict smiled through the screen. Academy Administration wants the special class to undergo a formal capability observation by the end of the week. Iri's expression sharpened. Miyu went rigid. Maria looked at me. The next pressure had arrived. That was faster than expected, Maria said. Benedict's smile remained. After yesterday's events, several parties are concerned that your private class may be receiving sponsor privilege without institutional accountability. Several parties, I said. Valence is one, there are others. Protecting Iri had created a political cost. Elevating Miyu had created envy. Keeping Benedict in place had made him useful, but also kept the Academy's procedural gears close enough to turn against me. And hidden players watching the route might not need to attack us directly if they could make the institution apply pressure for them. I looked at Miyu and Iri. One could shatter technical expectations if she did not freeze. One could survive conflict if she did not let rage choose the battlefield. Neither was ready for a public observation shaped by enemies. That meant we could not let enemies shape it. Except, I said. Miyu's eyes widened. Iri straightened. Maria stepped closer. Benedict looked briefly surprised. Then pleased. You are certain? No, I said, that is why it will be interesting. Iri gave me a look. You enjoy making things worse. No, I enjoy choosing where they get worse. Miyu whispered, that is not comforting. It was not meant to be. Maria's voice was low. If you accept a formal observation, the class becomes visible sooner than planned. It is already visible to the people who matter. Visibility changes the threat profile. So does hesitation. Benedict watched us through the screen. And what form should this observation take? I smiled. Not warmly. That would have alarmed them less. If they want to question whether this class deserves to exist, then we give them a controlled crisis. Miyu went white. Iri's eyes lit with suspicion. Maria said, define controlled. Limited technical breach. Simulated sponsor extraction attempt. Root pressure, misinformation, hostile social contact, and physical containment. Benedict laughed once. You want your first formal observation to be an ambush. No, I said, I want it to be honest. Iri stared at me. You are insane. Possibly. Miyu raised a shaking hand. Can I vote against being extracted? You can design part of the breach. That stopped her. I can. You know how someone would reach you through systems better than anyone in this room. Build the door they think they are opening, then decide what it does to their fingers. Miyu blinked. The fear did not vanish, but something brighter moved under it. Iri noticed. You are making her bait. I am making her the trap engineer. And me. You are what happens when the trap fails. She smiled then. Not happily. Dangerously. I can work with that. Benedict leaned back on the screen. You realize Academy observers will object to anything that looks like excessive sponsor militarization. Then give them comfortable seats. Aaron. What? This is supposed to prove the class can be managed. It will. By creating a crisis. By showing them the crisis was already here. Benedict looked at me for several seconds. Then the smile left his face. You believe someone is using Academy systems? Yes. And you intend to make them react during the observation? Yes. Maria said that is risky. I looked at the map again. Old protocols, false archives, camera gaps, root important modules, social provocation, sponsor pressure. Every thread pulled toward the same conclusion. Someone was moving through Trinity under the assumption that the opening was still loose enough to shape. They were right. I intended to make that expensive. Risky is the only kind of information left, I said. The week became a countdown. Not officially. Officially, it was orientation, internal placement, sponsor review, and provisional observation preparation. Trinity liked words that softened teeth, but inside the special classroom, every hour became pressure applied to a weak point. Miyu built systems. Not beautifully, not at first. She complained constantly, quietly, and with a level of technical venom that made even Maria stop correcting her posture. This architecture is offensive, she muttered during the second day, surrounded by open panels and projected code. Who designed this? Why is student routing connected to maintenance logic? Why are privacy layers this close to sponsor authentication? This is not a security system. It is a decorative curtain over a drain. I sat nearby reviewing reports. Can you use it? She looked personally insulted. Obviously. Then continue insulting it while you work. I was going to. Iri trained in the adjacent combat space because sitting through technical explanation made her expression increasingly homicidal. Maria arranged controlled sparring frames at my request. Nothing flashy. Movement, restraint, close-range reaction, awareness of cameras, anger management under provocation. Iri hated the last part. Maria stood across from her with a practice baton and no visible emotion. Again, Maria said. I did not even swing. You shifted weight before the provocation ended. So the camera would show intent before contact. Iri's grip tightened. If someone calls fallen filth, I'm supposed to stand there and measure camera angles. Yes. Easy for you to say. Maria's baton moved. Iri barely blocked. The impact rang through the practice space. Again, Maria said. Iri's eyes burned. You enjoy this? No. You just hit like you do. I hit like the footage will be reviewed by people who do not care why you were angry. That stopped Iri more effectively than comfort would have. Maria continued, if you want justice, survive the first record. The truth often arrives second. I watched from the doorway. Maria had given Iri the same lesson I had, but cleaner, less controlling, less covered in Stingray's shadow. That irritated me. It also helped. When Iri noticed me watching, she scowled. Is this amusing? No. You look like it is. I look like this because if I show concern, everyone becomes difficult. Miyu called from the other room. We are already difficult. Iri looked toward the wall. She is getting louder. Unfortunately. I heard that too, Miyu said. Maria lowered her baton. Again. Iri groaned. The class was still not a team. That was better. Teams built too early often hid cracks under enthusiasm. What we had was better for now. Friction, use, suspicion, and small moments where each person began adjusting to the others without admitting it. Iri learned that Miyu's fear did not make her weak. Miyu learned that Iri's anger did not make her stupid. Maria learned that both of them could become dangerous, in ways the family would not understand until too late. And I learned, slowly and with discomfort, that protecting people from the top of a hierarchy was not the same as standing beside them. I still did mostly the first. The second required trust. Trust required time. The observation was in 4 days. Time was the one thing the root rarely gave me. On the third night, the hidden player touched the bait again. This time not Shade's false archive. Miyu's trap. She had built it as a layered weakness around a fake special class equipment transfer. To most observers, it looked like a sloppy sponsor-side file containing shipment data for experimental module stabilizers. To someone searching for root value, it looked like exactly the kind of quiet treasure an overconfident errand Stingray might move before formal observation. Inside the file, Miyu placed 3 doors. The first gave harmless false inventory. The second triggered a silent mark. The third would collapse the intruder's route into a loop of meaningless maintenance requests, buying us 6 minutes to trace behavior. I had asked for 3 minutes. She gave me 6, and then complained the entire time that it was inelegant. At 02:32, the second door opened. At 02:33, the third began to shake. Miyu's emergency call hit my device before the Academy alarm noticed anything. They are better than I expected, she said, voice thin with panic and excitement. They did not take the obvious file. They are probing the folder names. I was already moving. Location. Routing through student residential again, but the behavior is not automated. Someone is reading. Maria appeared beside me in the corridor, like she had been waiting inside the wall. Armed, I asked. Always. Quietly. We moved through Trinity's night routes without waking the official system. That was Maria's gift. She did not merely know how to pass through security. She knew how to do it in a way that left security convinced nothing worth remembering had happened. Miyu kept talking in my ear. They are trying to exit through an environmental control node. No, wait, they noticed the loop. Can you hold them? For maybe 40 seconds. Make it a minute. That is not how seconds work. Be unreasonable. I hate you. After you hold them. Iri joined us at the stairwell, half-dressed in training gear, hair tied badly, eyes already awake with violence. Where? She asked. You were not called. Miyu called me. In my ear, Miyu said. I panicked. Of course she had. Maria looked at me. Send her back. Iri's face hardened. Try. This was the wrong time for a chain of command argument. The world loved wrong times. I looked at Iri. You follow my orders or you leave the route. I am not yours. No, but the person touching our systems may be connected to the same kind of interference that almost got you expelled. You want answers. Earn proximity. Her anger sharpened into focus. What orders? Do not hit first. Do not chase alone. If someone runs, cut off the path I name. If you hear Maria say stop, you stop before your pride catches up. I do not take orders from her either. Maria said, then you will lose. Iri stared at her. Then smiled. Fine. Miyu whispered through the line, they are exiting. East Residential Service Bridge, I think. No, yes, East Bridge. We moved. The East Residential Service Bridge was not on the normal student route. It connected dormitory maintenance to an old supply spine overlooking the lower courtyards, narrow enough that two people could not pass without turning sideways. Perfect for someone who wanted to move between access points without crossing main cameras. Also perfect for a trap. I signaled Maria left and Iri right. Then I stepped into the open. A figure at the far end of the bridge stopped. Student height, hooded academy jacket, face obscured by a privacy mesh that should not have been allowed inside residential zones. Not a professional. Not careless either. They reacted to me with a stillness that carried recognition. That was answer enough. You found the wrong file, I said. The figure took one step back. Iri shifted in the side passage. Too soon. The figure saw it. They moved. Not toward the exit. Toward the railing. For one split second, I thought they intended to jump. Then the air under the bridge distorted. A maintenance drone rose from below, hacked or prepositioned, its rotor field whining as the figure kicked off the railing toward it. Clever. Too clever for an ordinary student panic. Maria. She fired before I finished the name. Not a bullet, a suppression filament. It snapped across the bridge and cut the drone's lift on one side. The machine lurched. The figure twisted midair, using the failing drone as a step rather than transport. They had physical training. Iri moved next. She did not chase straight. She cut the landing angle, exactly where I would have sent her if I had time to speak. The figure came down near the service wall and found Iri already there, baton stolen from the practice room raised in both hands. Stop, she said. The figure threw a flash charge. Iri turned her face just enough. Maria's training had stuck. I moved through the light bloom, using the one thing I still hated relying on. Fear. Cloud Spider did not fully respond under Pandora the way it had before my cure. Compatibility was better than during the first days after treatment, but not perfect. The module woke under my skin like cold thread, elegant and dangerous, asking for output my new system could give but not yet safely sustain. Atom V23 issued a warning. Compatibility stress rising. Recommended output limit, 40%. I used 30. Invisible lines spread across the service bridge, not lethal, not wide, just enough to deny clean movement. The figure's next step stopped a finger's width from losing a tendon. They understood immediately. That reaction mattered. Most people did not sense Cloud Spider until something fell off. The figure froze. I walked closer. Privacy mesh off. No answer. Iri stood behind them, breathing hard. Maria covered the drone wreck. Miyu whispered in my ear, is everyone alive? For now. That is not comforting. It was not meant to be. The figure's hand twitched toward the mesh. Too slow. Too deliberate. Do not, I said. They stopped. Then a pulse burst from the collar instead. The mesh burned white. Not a flash, a data purge. Maria cursed under her breath and lunged. I tightened Cloud Spider, but the figure moved with the pulse, letting the burning mesh fall away in pieces while a second layer of disposable skin film dissolved underneath. For half a second I saw a face. Young. Male maybe. Unfamiliar. Then the skin film released a smoke burst, and the bridge's emergency ventilation swallowed him into white noise. Iri charged. Stop, Maria snapped. Iri stopped. Barely. The figure dropped through a maintenance hatch I had not seen on the floor because it had been disguised under old paneling. Cloud Spider cut after him, but I pulled back before the thread sliced blind through the shaft. Lethal force against an unidentified student would hand the Academy exactly the kind of scandal enemies wanted. And I needed him alive. The hatch sealed. Silence returned in pieces. Iri struck the wall with the baton. He got away. Yes. You let him. I stopped you from becoming the official attacker in a camera-blind service bridge at night. She spun toward me. He was right there. And ready for pursuit, with escape infrastructure prepared and evidence destruction built into his clothing. So we do nothing. I looked at the burned mesh fragments on the floor. No. Maria crouched near them. Residue survived. Miyu's voice sharpened. Bring it to me. Do not touch the inner layer with bare hands. It may contain thermal keys. Iri stared at the hatch like she could force it open with hatred. He knew we would come. No, I said, he knew someone might, that is different. Does that make you feel better? No. It made me feel worse. A reckless enemy improvises. A careful one prepares exits. Maria collected the fragments. I looked down through the bridge glass at the dark academy below. The hidden player had not taken the bait fully. They had tested it. They had escaped with minimal loss. They had learned we were watching. But we had learned too. They used student proximity. They knew root value names. They had prepared physical escape from digital discovery. They reacted to Cloud Spider. That last detail sat coldest in my mind. Either they knew Aaron Stingray's module profile from the original story, or they had studied me after Sector E. Both meant the same thing. The game was no longer theoretical. Someone had looked at the villain and planned for his teeth. The observation day could no longer remain a controlled performance. It had already become a live battlefield. The first rule after a failed capture is simple. Do not let frustration choose the next move. I failed that rule internally for about 9 seconds. Externally, Aaron Stingray remained calm. That was the advantage of a face everyone already believed was carved from arrogance. No one expected panic from me. No one expected guilt either. They expected irritation, contempt, cold adjustment. So I gave them that while my mind tore the encounter apart frame by frame. The figure had known enough to avoid digital capture. Prepared a drone. Prepared a burnable mesh. Prepared a maintenance hatch. Reacted to Iri's movement. Reacted to Cloud Spider. Escaped without attacking lethally. That last detail mattered. A hidden reader trying to kill me would have used the bridge better. The timing, the narrow line, the smoke, the hacked drone, the hatch under the service panel, each piece could have been turned into an assassination attempt if the goal had been my death. Instead, the figure chose withdrawal. Not fear alone. Information preservation. They did not want me dead yet. That was worse than hatred. Hatred makes people direct. Interest makes them patient. Miyu took the mesh fragments in the special class lab with both hands covered in insulated gloves and the expression of someone handling a dead insect that might still contain a bomb. Iri hovered behind her, too restless to sit. Maria stood by the door. I stood near the center table, because every person in the room was watching me and pretending not to. Miyu projected the inner layer residue across the display. It is not standard Academy privacy tech, she said. Illegal, I asked. Not exactly. More like legal components assembled into something illegal. Iri snorted. That sounds like how rich people do crime. Maria looked at her. It is also how poor people survive audits. Iri's expression shifted, not softer but less dismissive. Miyu zoomed in on a pattern of burned filament. The skin film was designed to dissolve identity markers under thermal overload, but it had to store facial tension compensation while active, or it would move wrong when he spoke. Some of that memory survived in the residue. Iri leaned in. You can get his face. No, not enough. Iri cursed. Miyu flinched, then continued. But maybe enough to compare against a small candidate pool. Jaw ratio, cheek movement, height estimate from the bridge footage, weight distribution from the drone impact. If we combine that with student residential access near the routing node, we can reduce the list. How much? Maria asked. Miyu hesitated. Maybe under 30. Too many, I said. I know. No, I mean too many if we search officially. Maria understood immediately. An official search alerts him. Yes. Iri crossed her arms. So what? We wait until he plays with more files. We make the room smaller around him without closing the door. That means nothing. It means we change the observation. Miyu looked up. You still want to hold it? Yes. After he escaped. Because he escaped. Maria's eyes narrowed. You want the observation to pressure the candidate pool? Yes. Iri stared at us. I hate when you both start sounding like knives talking to each other. Maria ignored that. The unknown party already knows we can detect some of his movement. If he is cautious, he will avoid systems during the observation. Unless the observation threatens something he wants. Miyu's fingers tightened. What does he want? I looked at the projected residue. That is what we need to make him tell us. Silence. I heard the sentence as soon as I said it. Make him tell us. Not ask, not discover, make. The original Aaron's instincts had not vanished with the disease. They had simply found cleaner excuses to remain. Iri caught the pause. What? Nothing. Liar. Maria's gaze sharpened. Miyu looked between us. I let the moment pass. There are 3 things we can pressure during the observation, I said. Miyu's technical value, Iri's placement, and the unknown module interest. If he wants future root assets, he will watch at least one of those. Root assets, Iri repeated. Mistake. Again. The word had slipped out because I was tired. I looked at her. Strategic assets. That is not what you said. No. Her eyes narrowed. You keep doing that. Doing what? Saying things like you know where people are supposed to go. Miyu went still. Maria did not move at all. The room tightened around the question. There it was again. The cost of knowing too much while speaking to people too sharp to dismiss their instincts. I could lie bluntly and lose ground. I could tell the truth and risk everything. Or I could give them a shape they could use without handing them the blade behind it. I chose the third. This world has patterns, I said. Families repeat strategies. Sponsors repeat exploitation. Trinity repeats cruelty and calls it evaluation. People with talent are pushed toward places where their talent can be priced. If you know enough patterns, you can predict where pressure will fall. Iri did not look satisfied. But she did not reject it. Miyu looked down at her tablet. Maria filed the answer away with all the others. Good enough. For now. The observation plan changed before sunrise. Originally, I intended a controlled crisis, a simulated sponsor extraction attempt, designed by Miyu, observed by Academy administrators, survived by Iri, and politically framed by Benedict. Enough to prove special class necessity while making the hidden player react if they were reckless. Now the simulation needed a second layer. The public version would test whether special class candidates could respond to mixed technical and physical pressure. The private version would make the unknown player believe a real root important module was temporarily vulnerable. Not heavenly weight pendulum itself. I had secured it too carefully for that. A shadow of it. A false compatibility report suggesting the module's storage key would be present during observation for controlled resonance testing. Miyu hated the idea immediately. If he takes the bait and touches the wrong layer, the resonance simulator could overload. Can you stop that? Yes, but... Then stop it. That is not the point. What is? She looked genuinely angry now, which still startled me every time. You are making everything into bait. Files, modules, people, me, Iri, even Shade, and he is dead. Iri watched silently. Maria did too. I let Miyu finish, because interrupting would have been easier. She held the tablet against her chest like a shield. I know there are enemies. I know you are trying to protect us. But sometimes it feels like you only know how to protect something by putting it exactly where danger can see it. The words cut deeper because she was not wrong. I had pulled her out of Sector E to protect her from isolation, then placed her under Academy lights. I had saved Iri from expulsion by attaching my shadow to her name. I had left Benedict in position so his authority could become a lever. I had used Shade's corpse as bait. Now I was using a module tied to Iri's future to draw out a hidden reader. Every solution I made had teeth pointing inward. I said, "You are right." Miyu blinked. Iri's expression shifted. Maria's face remained still, but I felt her attention sharpen. I continued, "I do not know how to protect you cleanly. Clean protection requires stable ground. We do not have that. We have an academy that converts students into assets, sponsors already pushing against the class, a family that will eventually ask why I am collecting dangerous people, and someone inside Trinity moving with information they should not possess." Miyu's anger faltered, not because it vanished, but because it had to share space with fear. I hated that too. "So yes," I said, "I use bait, I use fear. I use rooms, names, files, rumors, and positions. I will probably use them again. If that is unacceptable, say so now." Iri laughed softly. "That sounds like a trap too. It is a door with bad hinges." Miyu looked at her tablet. "What happens if I say no?" "I change the plan." She looked up. "You would?" "Yes. Even if it is worse. If you cannot function inside the plan is already worse." Miyu stared at me as if trying to identify the trick. Iri did not. Iri understood ugly bargains better. She asked, "And if I say no?" "You do not get the same answer." Miyu turned toward her, horrified. Iri's mouth curved. At least he is honest. I held Iri's gaze. "If you say no because the risk is poorly shaped, I change the plan. If you say no because you hate standing where a fight might happen, I ignore you." Her smile widened without warmth. "I hate you less when you stop pretending." "That is concerning." "It should be." Miyu sighed shakily. "I will build it, but I want safeguards under my control, not yours." "Granted." Maria spoke for the first time in several minutes. "That gives her authority over a critical layer." "Yes." "That is a vulnerability." "It is also trust." The word landed awkwardly. I almost regretted it. Miyu looked down before anyone could see her expression clearly. Iri rolled her eyes. Maria watched me as if I had just placed a weapon on the table and asked whether anyone wanted to pick it up. Maybe I had. By afternoon, Trinity had approved the observation framework because Benedict made it sound safer than it was. That was his gift. He could wrap a knife in policy silk until administrators thanked him for the handle. The formal document described the exercise as an integrated adaptive evaluation, technical breach response, physical escort pressure, misinformation recognition, and sponsor-side decision-making. In plain language, the special class would be placed inside a controlled academy wing with a simulated threat attempting to extract a valuable technical package. Miyu would defend the system layer. Iri would protect the physical root. I would observe and intervene only if boundaries were exceeded. Maria would act as safety supervisor. Benedict would represent academy administration. Everyone involved knew at least one of those descriptions was a lie. No one agreed on which one. The day before the observation, I received a family summons. Not from Benedict. Above him. The Stingray family did not request casually. It issued invitations that already contained the consequences of refusal. The message arrived through an internal channel Maria could not ignore and Benedict could not intercept. Virtual presence required. Subject, Academy influence irregularities. I laughed once when I saw it. Maria did not. You should attend seriously. I attend everything seriously. You attend many things contemptuously. Contempt can be serious. She did not smile. The conference opened in my office at dusk. 3 silhouettes appeared across the secure display, not true images. The family liked layers, voices altered slightly, faces obscured enough to deny personality while preserving rank. Stingray power often arrived as absence. You were expected to fear the parts withheld. One of the silhouettes spoke first. Aaron, good evening. You appear healthy. I try to inconvenience expectations. A pause. The line had amused no one. Let them misunderstand danger. Humor in Stingray meetings was mostly used to measure who felt safe enough to do that. The second silhouette said, your recent Academy activity has caused concern. Then the Academy is paying attention. You misunderstand. The concern is internal. I understood. Maria stood behind me, silent. I knew she was listening as much as guarding. The first silhouette continued. You were expected to recover discreetly. Instead, you entered Academy politics, disrupted a sponsor matter, established a provisional class, elevated a slum technician, protected a fallen-born student with anti-corporate tendencies, and left Benedict in a position that now appears subordinate to your private strategy. Accurate. Incomplete. Dangerous. I leaned back. You make productivity sound criminal. Do not deflect. Then ask the actual question. The room cooled. The third silhouette spoke this time. Are you building an Academy faction, independent of Stingray interests? Clean. Lethal. Maria's presence behind me became heavier. I answered without delay. No. Explain. Trinity Academy is currently unstable. Valence attempted to influence discipline through a candidate. Unknown parties have accessed outdated system layers. A module of strategic value was searched before secure collection. The absence of reliable central student influence following Shade Wells' death has created a vacuum around several high-value candidates. The silhouettes did not move. I continued. Leaving those candidates unmonitored would allow rival corporations, Academy factions, or unknown actors to secure them first. Concentrating them under a special class gives Stingray visibility, leverage, and plausible protective authority. The second silhouette said, you speak of Shade Wells as if his absence has strategic significance. It does. He was a scholarship-level anomaly, not a family asset. That was the mistake others made. Silence. A dangerous answer, but not one they could dismiss. The first silhouette said, your cure changed your judgment. My cure restored my ability to act on it. You have become less predictable. I was dying. Dying men are easy to predict. The third silhouette leaned slightly forward. And now I am useful. That was the language they trusted. Not good, not kind, not sincere. Useful. The family understood that word the way priests understood prayer. Behind me, Maria did not move. The first silhouette said, there are concerns regarding Maria's continued assignment. My expression did not change. Maria's did not either. Inside, something cold unfolded. What concerns? I asked. She has allowed repeated unsanctioned movement, concealed the speed of your recovery, and supported Academy actions before review. I felt the shape of the trap immediately. They were not only questioning me. They were testing whether I would protect Maria. If I did, I revealed attachment. If I did not, I let them remove one of the few people competent enough to keep me alive and dangerous enough to kill me if I became the wrong thing. The original Aaron would have discarded a subordinate to prove indifference. The reader inside me wanted to defend her. The survivor chose a third path. Maria remains assigned, I said. That is not your decision alone. It is if you want continuity of containment. A pause. The word containment did what I needed. It reframed her not as someone I protected, but as part of the system controlling me. I continued, "You are concerned I have become unpredictable. Replacing the one attendant with the best current behavioral baseline on me would be inefficient. Maria knows my recovery pattern, current module limitations, academy movements, and external contact map. Remove her now, and you create a blind spot during an active instability window." Maria's silence behind me changed. I could not see her face. I did not need to. The second silhouette said, "You argue for her as surveillance. I argue for her as utility. And loyalty. Loyalty without utility is decoration." A very Stingray answer. Ugly enough to be believed. The first silhouette accepted it by moving on. "The special class observation will proceed under family review. Do not create public scandal." Define scandal. Do not be clever. I need operational boundaries. No student deaths. No sponsor exposure without approval. No direct accusation of hidden interference without evidence that can survive board scrutiny. Reasonable. Restrictive. Potentially fatal. Accepted, I said. The third silhouette added, "Aaron." Yes. If your academy project becomes a liability, we will correct it. I smiled faintly. I would expect nothing less from family. The call ended. For several seconds, neither Maria nor I spoke. Then she said, "You protected my position." I protected continuity of containment. That was the phrasing. It worked. Was it only phrasing? I turned slightly. Maria's face was unreadable but not empty. That difference mattered. "You told me you would not warn me first if you decided I was a danger." Yes. I prefer knowing where loaded guns are. Her eyes held mine. That is not an answer. No. She looked away first. That from Maria felt almost like a confession. "You gave them a reason to keep me near you," she said. Yes. Even though I may be the one who kills you if they order it. Yes. Why? Because I need someone near me who is not fooled by me. Because if I become the original Aaron in everything but memory, someone has to notice before it is too late. Because you are dangerous, and I am starting to trust danger that looks back honestly. I said because you are useful. Her expression closed. That was the safer answer. The worse one. She bowed. "As you say, young master." I watched her leave and felt the cost of surviving one more conversation settle somewhere under my ribs. The next morning, the observation began. Trinity opened the controlled wing to selected observers, sponsor representatives, Benedict's administrative panel, 2 faculty supervisors, and enough hidden cameras to make privacy a nostalgic concept. The official threat team consisted of academy security trainees wearing neutral gear. The unofficial threat consisted of whoever had already touched our bait and might decide today was worth touching again. Miyu stood at the technical station, pale but focused. Iri stood at the physical route entrance, arms loose, eyes restless. Maria ran safety oversight. Benedict sat with the administrators behind the glass, looking calm enough that I knew he was nervous. I entered last. The room reacted as rooms always did. Fear first. Interpretation second. I let both spread. Then I gave the signal. The simulated breach began. The first layer was supposed to look simple. A hostile team enters through the East Service route, triggers a false equipment transfer alert, and attempts to extract the protected technical package before Miyu can seal the system or Iri can intercept the physical breach. It was clean on paper. Too clean. The kind of exercise academy observers loved because it let them pretend danger moved through announced channels. Real danger rarely respected the lesson plan. Miyu's fingers moved across the station the moment the alarm began. "False transfer request detected," she said, voice tight but steady. "External authentication key is wrong, blocking sponsor handoff." One observer behind the glass leaned forward. "Let them watch her work." The hostile team reached the first corridor junction. 3 Academy trainees, controlled weapons, non-lethal charge levels, standard breach pattern. Iri watched them approach with the expression of someone being asked not to bite until the meat crossed a line. "Hold," Maria said through the comm. Iri's jaw flexed. The lead trainee stepped into the marked zone. Iri moved. Not beautifully, not yet, but cleaner than before. She did not rush the first insult of motion. She let him commit his weight, turned his own angle into a lock, and slammed him into the padded wall hard enough that the observers flinched. "First contact neutralized," Maria said. A second trainee tried to flank. Iri saw him, but overcommitted by half a step. Maria's voice cut in. "Left shoulder." Iri adjusted just in time. The trainee's capture loop scraped across her sleeve instead of binding her arm. She drove her elbow into his guard, not his throat. Controlled. Angry, but controlled. Controlled enough. Then the system layer shifted. Miyu's face changed. "What?" I asked. "There is a second request." "Expected." "No." The public simulation had one false request. Miyu had built hidden false doors under it, but this request did not come from her trap. It came through Academy administration. Benedict stood behind the glass. "That is not ours," he said, voice suddenly sharp in my comm. The administrators looked at one another. Miyu's hands froze for a dangerous fraction of a second. "Miyu," I said. She swallowed. "I know." Her fingers moved again. The display split into layers: public breach, hidden bait, new administrative command. The third thread attempted to override the simulated package and redirect the protected file into a board review buffer. Illegal extraction hidden inside the observation. Clever. Not theft. Procedure. Someone had used the observers themselves as cover. I smiled despite myself. Maria noticed. "You expected this?" "No." "Then why are you smiling?" "Because now it is interesting." Miyu's voice rose. "It is using valid administrative authority. If I block it, it looks like I am obstructing the observation." Benedict said, "Who authorized that command?" One of the Trinity administrators answered too quickly. "It may be an automatic compliance routine." "No," Miyu snapped. Everyone behind the glass heard her. She froze. I did not let the silence punish her. "Explain," I said. Her breathing shook once, then steadied. "It is not automatic. It pretends to be. The timestamp is nested under compliance, but the trigger phrase references the protected package label we only finalized this morning." The administrator's face went pale. Benedict turned slowly toward him. Iri was still fighting in the corridor. 3 trainees had become 5. Not part of the original count. Maria saw it too. Additional hostiles on physical layer. "Authorized?" I asked. "No." The simulation was being hijacked from both sides. Digital extraction through procedure. Physical pressure through added bodies. The hidden player was not only watching. They were testing whether the special class would break under a crisis, where every official observer had incentive to pretend the crisis was still controlled. Iri took a hit to the ribs from a trainee who should not have been there. Her feet slid. For a moment, anger flashed too hot. "Iri," I said. "I know." She did not know. Not fully. The 6th trainee entered from the rear maintenance gate with a charge net set too high for training standards. Maria moved. I raised one hand. "Not yet." She stopped. "Barely." If Maria intervened now, the observation became a Stingray rescue. The class failed publicly. The hidden player learned that pressure on Iri forced my hand. We would keep everyone alive and lose the board. If Iri handled it, she became harder to remove. If she failed, I would have to move anyway. That was the cost of building people under observation. Their growth happened under blades. Iri saw the charge net at the last second. The old version of her anger would have lunged. This time she dropped. The net snapped over her head and caught the trainee behind her, tangling his weapon arm. Iri rolled, kicked the first trainee's knee out, and used the falling body as a shield against the rear attacker. Messy. Effective. Alive. Behind the glass, one observer whispered something I did not catch. Benedict did. He looked almost satisfied. Miyu was fighting her own battle. The administrative extraction kept splitting, each branch framed as a different compliance necessity: safety review, sponsor transparency, archive duplication, student protection. It wrapped theft in such polite language that even blocking it looked criminal. Miyu's hands trembled. Every door I close makes me look worse on the audit trail. Then stop closing doors. She blinked. What? Open one. That is the opposite of defense. Exactly. She stared at the display for half a second. Then understanding hit. Oh. Her fingers moved faster. What are you doing? Maria asked. Miyu answered without looking away. I am giving the command what it wants. Benedict's voice cut in. That sounds dangerous. It wants the protected package. I'm opening a compliance buffer with a package that records every authorization layer used to request it. The administrator behind the glass stood. That may contaminate the exercise record. I looked at him. Sit down. He sat. Miyu opened the door. The administrative extraction lunged. For a moment, the system display turned red. Then the trap closed. Miyu's decoy package entered the board review buffer carrying a mirror of the command path, trigger phrase, hidden routing node, and credential signature. Not a full identity, but enough to prove something had entered the official observation under false authority. The room behind the glass went silent. Miyu exhaled like she had forgotten lungs existed. Captured, she whispered. I said louder. She flinched. Then she straightened. Unauthorized administrative extraction captured. Every observer heard it. Make the truth public before the institution could swallow it. In the corridor, Iri slammed the last added trainee into the floor and pinned his charge net under her boot. Additional hostile restrained, Maria reported. Iri looked directly toward the observation glass. She was breathing hard, hair loose, uniform scuffed, one cheek bruised, but she had not lost control. She had not chased outside the route. She had not given them the violent footage they wanted. Instead, she raised the captured charge net. This yours? She asked. No one answered. Benedict started laughing. Softly at first. Then openly. I looked toward the screen. He spread his hands. My apologies. It seems the special class has demonstrated relevance. The administrators looked like they wanted him dead. For once, I did not blame them. The exercise ended 3 minutes later because continuing would have forced Trinity to admit it no longer controlled its own observation. Officially, the special class passed. Unofficially, someone had tried to use the exercise to steal information, pressure Iri into a violent failure, and test Miyu's defensive capacity. We had won. We had also revealed more of ourselves. That was becoming a pattern. Miyu nearly collapsed the moment the observers left. Not dramatically. She simply sat down too quickly, hands still shaking above her tablet. Iri came back from the corridor with blood on her lip and a furious expression that made 3 Academy assistants avoid eye contact. Maria checked the injury. Iri slapped her hand away. I am fine. Maria caught her wrist before the movement finished. No, you are bleeding. I said I am fine. And I heard you lie. Iri tried to pull free. Maria did not move. For a second the two of them stared at each other, one all sharpened anger, the other controlled force. I expected Iri to escalate. Instead, she looked away. Fine, check it. Miyu watched with exhausted amazement. You listened. Iri glared at her. Do not make it sound historic. It kind of is. Iri pointed at the tablet. You almost exploded the system. I did not almost explode anything. The whole screen turned red. That was a controlled warning state. It looked like explosion color. Explosion color is not a technical category. It should be. I looked away before either of them saw my expression. The original protagonist would have smiled warmly here. He would have let the moment breathe as proof that bonds were forming. I did not have that luxury, and warmth from me still carried the wrong shadow. But I let the exchange continue for 10 more seconds. That was something. Then I ruined it. Enough. Miyu, preserve the captured command path. Maria, isolate the added trainee records. Iri, medical check first, then written statement. Iri groaned. I knew you would make survival boring. Survival is mostly paperwork after violence. Miyu nodded tiredly. That is horrible and true. Maria released Iri's wrist. Benedict entered in person 10 minutes later, which meant the situation had become too interesting for him to enjoy remotely. He looked at the damaged equipment, the blood on Iri's sleeve, the collapsed expression on Miyu's face, and finally at me. You staged an observation and caught a real intrusion inside it. Yes. Was that the plan? Parts of it. Which parts? The successful ones. He sighed. You are impossible. You are welcome. I did not thank you. You were about to. Benedict glanced at Miyu. She saved your class. I know. Miyu stiffened at being discussed. Benedict inclined his head toward her. Impressive work. She looked at me as if asking whether this was a trap. I said, you may accept praise without signing anything. Miyu bowed awkwardly. Thank you. Benedict then looked at Iri. And you avoided giving them the footage they wanted. Iri stared at him. Do you want a medal for noticing? Benedict blinked. For one beautiful second, he had no polished answer. I decided then that Iri's recruitment had already paid for itself in entertainment alone. Maria did not share my private amusement. The added trainees were not in the official roster, she said. Their credentials were temporary. One has already been deleted from the active system. Benedict's expression cooled. Deleted by whom? That is what we need your chair for, I said. He looked at me. My chair? Yes, the one I generously left under you. You are never going to stop saying that. Not while it remains useful. He rubbed his brow. What do you need? Board-level preservation order on all observation records before Trinity sanitizes embarrassment. That will make enemies. We already have them. I want names. And if the names point somewhere inconvenient. They usually do. Benedict studied me. You understand that if I push this, I attach myself to your special class more openly. Yes. And if the family disapproves, I share liability. Yes. You are using me again. Correct. Iri looked between us. You two are related. Benedict gave her a polite smile. Unfortunately. That explains a lot. Miyu made a tiny sound that might have been a laugh trying to escape and die unnoticed. Benedict sighed. I will issue the preservation order. Good. But Aaron. What? If this exposes a Trinity faction, valence move, or family-adjacent operation, you cannot simply cut through the room until everyone agrees with you. No student deaths, no sponsor exposure without approval, no direct accusation without board survivable evidence. He stared. The family already warned you. Yes. And you are still doing this. Yes. Why? The room quieted. Miyu looked down. Iri watched me with the suspicion of someone who hated needing the answer. Maria already knew several partial versions and trusted none fully. Because the original protagonist is dead. Because the academy route is now bending around me. Because someone else inside this building knows enough to hunt future important pieces. Because if I leave the board alone, it will not stay empty. It will fill with people worse than me. I said, because whoever moved during the observation believed they could use Trinity's own systems to take from this class without consequence. Benedict waited. I continued, I dislike being stolen from. That was the answer everyone could believe. It was not the whole truth. It rarely was. The preservation order went out within the hour. Trinity reacted like a body discovering poison in its blood. Administrators called meetings. Sponsor representatives requested clarification. Valence denied involvement before being asked, which made Maria mark them for deeper review. The added trainees were identified as Academy security reserves temporarily reassigned under a forged practical adjustment notice. Forged badly enough to be found. Well enough to be used. The Administrative Extraction Command had routed through an internal compliance desk assigned to a faculty assistant who had reported sick that morning. The timing was insultingly neat. The assistant's device had been cloned. The clone had accessed the observation system from a student residential wing, but the residential logs had been partially burned. Again, not professionally. Narratively, the hidden player still thought like someone cleaning up a plot thread. By evening, Miyu reduced the candidate pool from 30 to 11. By night, Maria reduced it to 7. By midnight, I reduced it to 4. Not through better data. Through behavior. 4 students had moved differently after the observation. 1 requested dormitory reassignment. 1 visited the medical wing without injury. 1 sent a message to an external address and deleted it within 12 seconds. 1 attended dinner normally but watched the special class table through a reflective surface instead of looking directly. The last one interested me most. People who stare directly are curious. People who use reflections are afraid of being seen seeing. His name was Kain, a minor scholarship candidate in public records. Above average technical aptitude, low sponsor visibility, no major family weight, assigned to residential wing C in the original story, the name meant nothing to me. That did not comfort me. A hidden reader in an unimportant body might be more dangerous than one in a famous role. Less attention, fewer expectations, more freedom to move in the spaces between scenes. I watched Kain's file while the Academy slept. Miyu sat on the floor nearby because she had refused to leave before the candidate reduction finished and then became too tired to maintain chair dignity. Iri had fallen asleep sitting upright against the wall, arms crossed, refusing medical rest with the stubbornness of someone who would probably claim sleep ambushed her. Maria stood by the door, still awake because Maria seemed to treat exhaustion as a rumor beneath her rank. For one moment the room looked almost peaceful. That made me uneasy. Peace in a story like this usually meant something had found the right angle to strike. Miyu stirred. Are you still looking? Yes. You should sleep. So should you. I am sitting that is close. No, it is not. She opened one eye. You are not my doctor. I own several. That makes it worse. I looked at her, then at Iri asleep against the wall. You both did well today. Miyu's face went still. Praise still hit her like sunlight entering a sealed room. Then she frowned. Do not say it like a reward distribution. How should I say it? Normally. I do not know what that means. She considered that. Then quietly, you did not let them take the file. You stopped them. You told me to open the door. You decided how. That distinction mattered to her. Her silence told me it landed. Maybe that was how trust began for Miyu, not through protection, through authorship, through knowing some part of the machine responded to her hands and not mine. She hugged her knees. Iri scares me. She scares most people. No, not like that. I waited. Miyu looked at the sleeping girl. She is angry in a direction. I was scared in every direction. It feels different. That is why she needs restraint. And why do I need? The question was so soft I almost missed it. The original protagonist would have given her a warm answer, confidence, friends, courage, a place to belong. I almost envied him for the simplicity of being allowed to say such things without sounding like a manipulator. "You need room," I said. Miyu looked at me. "Room?" "To become larger than the fear without having to pretend the fear is gone." She stared at the floor. "That sounded normal. Do not spread that rumor." She made the tiny almost laugh again. Across the room, Iri's eyes opened. "I heard the whole thing." Miyu startled. "You were asleep." "I was resting violently." "That is not a thing." "It is now." Iri stood, rolled her shoulder, winced, and pretended not to. "You watching Kain?" she asked. I looked at her. "You saw. You have had his file open long enough for even me to read the name upside down." "Then yes." "Is he the one?" "I do not know." "Then what do we do?" That question mattered. "We?" "Not what do you do?" "Not what do I do?" "We?" I did not make a point of it. Points like that break when touched too early. "We do not accuse him," I said. "We do not corner him. We do not let him know he has been reduced to candidate. So we watch." "Yes." "I hate watching." "You will learn." She smirked. "You sound like Maria." Maria said from the door, "That is unfortunate for both of us." Miyu actually laughed this time. "Small. Exhausted. Real." Atom V23 pulsed again. Class cohesion metric adjusted. I closed the notification before anyone noticed. Cohesion. The system was measuring them now. Not just me. That should have made me happy. Instead, it made my blood cold. Because anything the system measured, the root might test. And the root had a habit of testing with knives. The next morning, Kain approached Miyu. Not dramatically, not in a dark corridor, not under suspicious lighting. He chose one of Trinity's open technical libraries during equipment access hour, where dozens of students moved between stations and every camera angle looked harmless. "Smart." Miyu notified me before he reached her, because I had made paranoia rule 4, and she had apparently decided to weaponize compliance. Kain approaching. Technical library. He is smiling. I do not like it. I read the message twice. He is smiling. Miyu's danger rating system was crude, but emotionally useful. I was 3 floors away with Maria when it came in. "Move?" Maria asked. "No." She looked at me. "We let it play." "Miyu is alone." "No, she is in public. She has the alert trigger and Iri is closer." Maria paused. "You told Iri to shadow her." "I told Iri not to." "And?" She ignored me predictably. Maria's expression suggested she disapproved of plans built around disobedience while appreciating the efficiency. Through Miyu's open audio channel, Kain's voice arrived. "Excuse me, you are Miyu, right?" Miyu's reply was too stiff. "Yes." "I watched the observation yesterday. Your reconstruction logic was incredible." Silence. Praise. Of course he opened with praise. Miyu said thank you. "I am working on adaptive routing systems myself. Not at your level, obviously, but I was wondering if you had time to discuss the compliance trap you used." Maria's eyes narrowed. I said nothing. Miyu did well at first. "That is sponsor restricted." "Oh, of course. I did not mean the actual structure, more the principle. I have never seen someone invert administrative extraction that cleanly." He was too precise. A normal student would say it looked amazing. A technical student might ask how she trapped the command. Kain referenced administrative extraction inversion after a closed observation, where the full details should not yet be student gossip. Miyu heard it too. Her voice became smaller. "I did not say that was what happened." Kain paused. "Good girl." Then he laughed softly. "Sorry, rumors exaggerate, I guessed." Iri's voice cut in from nearby. Bad guess. There was a shifting sound. Kain said, Iri, right. Depends who is asking. Kain, I did not mean to bother her. Then stop. I just wanted to talk. I heard you stop. Maria looked at me. Now? Not yet. Kain chose his next words carefully. You know, people are going to misunderstand you if you act hostile whenever someone approaches. Iri laughed once. They already misunderstand me. You are late. I am trying to be friendly. No, you are trying to sound harmless after asking about something you should not know. Miyu made a tiny distressed sound. Kain's voice lowered. That is a serious accusation. No, it is a casual warning. There was the sound of a chair moving. Then Kain said something that changed everything. I just thought people in Aaron Stingray's class would be more open to cooperation, especially after Shade Wells. The library noise seemed to drop. Even through the audio channel, I felt the silence. Miyu stopped breathing. Iri did not answer. Maria's hand moved toward her weapon. Kain had said the name deliberately. Not loudly enough for everyone, not softly enough to be missed. A probe. A test of reaction. I started walking. This time not running. Running would mean he had forced my pace. Maria followed. In the audio, Iri's voice turned very calm. What did you say? Kain replied, Shade Wells, the scholarship student who died in Sector E. Everyone knows he was connected to the Blood Wolves incident. Not everyone. Not like that. Iri said, Miyu, stand up. Miyu whispered, I am standing. Stand behind me. Kain laughed awkwardly. This is unnecessary. No, I said as I entered the library. This is the first sensible thing anyone has done in the last 30 seconds. Every student nearby turned. Kain turned too. For the first time, I saw his face directly. Young, plain in a way that helped him vanish, eyes too controlled, mouth shaped into surprise a fraction too late. Not proof. Enough. Young Master Aaron, he said. Kain Velder. His surprise became real. I knew his name. That frightened him more than my arrival. I walked toward him slowly. Explain why you mentioned Shade Wells. He swallowed. It is a public rumor. No. He blinked. No. No, it is a contained incident with sanitized Academy-adjacent gossip, sponsor-controlled fragments, and several versions designed to mislead people who hear them casually. Your phrasing was too clean. Students nearby went silent. Kain's face tightened. I did not realize asking about a rumor was forbidden. It is not. Then why am I being treated like this? Because you chose the wrong rumor, the wrong person, and the wrong morning. Iri shifted beside Miyu. Miyu looked like she wanted to disappear into the shelves. I did not look at either of them. If I did, Kain would know which reaction mattered most. Kain raised his hand slightly. I apologize, I will leave. No. The library temperature dropped. You wanted to discuss cooperation, I said. Let us cooperate. His eyes flicked toward the exits. Maria had already positioned herself near the closest one. Iri noticed the second and moved without being told. Miyu stayed behind Iri, hands gripping her tablet, but her eyes were on Kain's collar, sleeves, pockets, shoes, looking for tech. Kain smiled faintly. In public. Public protects you. That sounds like a threat. It is an explanation of my restraint. A few students backed away. Kain's mask slipped for one heartbeat. There. Annoyance. Not fear. A person unjustly accused shows fear, confusion, anger at the situation. Kain showed irritation that the scene was not following his preferred route. I stepped closer. Who told you Shade Wells was connected to Miyu? I did not say he was connected to her. You implied the connection by approaching her with his name after asking about restricted observation methods. That is interpretation. Correct. He hesitated. I smiled. You thought I would need proof to interpret you. His fingers twitched. Miyu whispered, left sleeve. I moved before Kain did. Cloud Spider would have been excessive, so I used the body I had been given and the lessons it still remembered. One step inside his reach, one hand to the wrist, pressure against the tendon before he could trigger whatever sat under the cuff, fast enough that the nearby students gasped only after he was already pinned against the table. He hissed. A small device slipped from his sleeve and clattered onto the floor. Maria covered it with a containment cap. Miyu's voice shook. That is a short-range burst key. For what? I asked. She looked at Kain. To wipe local device traces, maybe trigger a decoy alarm. Kain smiled despite the pain. There is no rule against carrying personal security tools. No, I said, but there are rules against being boring when caught. I released him and stepped back. Not because I wanted to. Because keeping my hand on him too long would turn investigation into assault under the cameras. Kain adjusted his sleeve. Students whispered. Maria's eyes stayed on the device. Iri looked ready to break his jaw and was doing a decent job not doing it. Miyu looked at me. Her expression asked the question before her mouth did. What now? I had several options. Accuse him too early. Detain him, risky without enough evidence. Let him go, dangerous. Turn the moment into another trap. The only workable option was another trap. Kain Velder, I said, you are now invited to submit a formal technical interest statement to the special class. Everyone stared. Kain most of all. What? You approached Miyu regarding advanced compliance inversion. You mentioned shade wells. You carry unauthorized wipe-adjacent hardware. That makes you either suspicious or unusually motivated. I prefer both categories within view. Iri snapped, you are recruiting him. No, I'm putting a bell on him. Kain's expression darkened. I refuse. Excellent, refusal will be recorded. You cannot force me. No, but I can make your refusal more interesting than acceptance. Maria stepped forward. Young Master, Academy procedure. Is exactly why he gets a choice. I looked at Kain. Statement by tonight, or I send Maria's report, Miyu's device analysis, and this delightful library recording to Benedict for administrative preservation. You may decide which version of visibility suits you. For the first time, Kain looked afraid. Not enough. But truly. He left without answering. I watched him go. Iri rounded on me immediately. That was insane. Yes. You had him. No, I had a sleeve device and a suspicious conversation. He knows something. Yes. And you let him walk. I gave him a corridor with mirrors. She stopped. Miyu went still first. You want to see who he contacts? Yes. Maria had already opened the trace. I will need the device shell. Miyu pointed at the containment cap. Do not open it near the library network. I was not planning to. Good, because if it has a Deadman pulse. Miyu. Yes. Breathe. She inhaled. Iri looked at her. You noticed the sleeve. Miyu hugged her tablet. It was too stiff. You saved me from making a mistake. Miyu's eyes widened. Iri looked away, irritated by her own sincerity. Do not make a face. I was not. You were about to. I do not have a face prepared. That sounds like something you would have prepared. I let them speak for 3 seconds. Then I said, move. We have until tonight before Kain chooses whether to step into the room or run. Iri rolled her shoulders. What do you think he will do? I looked toward the library exit, where Kain had disappeared into the Academy's polished crowds. He will do what hidden players always do when the root starts noticing them. Miyu swallowed. What? Try to change the scene before it closes. Kain did not run immediately. That was the first useful thing he told me after leaving the library. Running is honest. Panic has a clean shape. A person who bolts after exposure gives you route, contacts, hiding places, emergency resources. But Kain returned to his normal schedule for 3 hours. He attended a systems theory lecture. He ate lunch with 2 students who looked bored enough to be genuine acquaintances. He submitted a minor assignment. He visited the dormitory storage wing and spent 11 minutes pretending to look for a replacement uniform strap. Then he made his first mistake. He did not contact an outside sponsor. He contacted an abandoned student forum buried under Trinity's old intranet. Miyu found the movement because she had decided, without asking, that every obsolete academy communication system was offensive and therefore suspicious. I did not question her reasoning. In practice, her irritation worked better than half the formal audit tools Maria had requested. The forum had been dead for years. Old class complaints, dormitory rumors, hidden guides about avoiding predatory sponsors, technical jokes that had aged badly. The kind of place institutions forget because deleting it would require admitting it existed. Kain opened a thread with no visible title. Then he typed a single line. "The villain is watching the wrong door." Miyu read it aloud in the lab, and then looked at me like the message might start bleeding. Iri leaned over her shoulder. "That is about you." "Yes." "He called you the villain." "People do that." "No, not like a rumor, like a role." She was right. My skin went cold under the calm surface. Kain did not write Aaron. He did not write Stingray. He wrote the villain. That was not academy gossip. That was reader language. Maria stood behind us, expression unreadable. "You believe this confirms your theory?" "Yes." "Which theory?" I looked at the message again. There are some truths that cannot be shared slowly because every partial version becomes more dangerous than silence. Kain's phrasing had moved the boundary. Maria had already seen too much. Iri had heard too much. Miyu had built too many tools around impossible patterns. Still, the full truth remained a weapon I did not know how to hold in a crowded room. So I gave them the next layer. Kain is not reacting only to political events. He recognizes narrative roles. Iri frowned. "Narrative roles?" "Yes." "Like calling you the villain?" "Yes." Miyu's voice became small. "And Shade?" I looked at her. She had already put the pieces near each other. Shade's wrong timing, his impossible module stacking, his death, my lies, the hidden player, the root important names. I said Shade's body was likely occupied by someone who also recognized roles. The room fell silent. Maria did not have the word transmigration yet, but the scale of the implication reached her. Iri had fewer pieces and reacted faster. "Occupied." "Possessed, replaced, I do not know the correct mechanism." Miyu sat down slowly. "That is possible. I am standing here." The words left my mouth before caution caught them. Maria's eyes snapped to me. Iri went completely still. Miyu stared. Too much. Too clean. The room had finally reached the truth I had been walking around since I woke coughing blood into porcelain. I could have retreated. I could have claimed metaphor. I could have turned the room cold and made them afraid to ask. But Kain had written the villain. The root was no longer giving me time to lie gracefully. I sat down. Not at the head of the table. At the side. That mattered more than I wanted it to. "I am not the original Aaron Stingray," I said. No one breathed correctly. Iri's hand moved first, not to attack, to find balance on the back of a chair. Miyu whispered, "What?" Maria did not move at all. That was worse. I kept my voice controlled because if it broke, the room would break with it. I woke in his body shortly before the disease should have killed him. Before that, I knew this world as a story. For a moment the room had no hierarchy, no Stingray name, no special class, no root, only 4 people hearing a truth too large to accept cleanly. Iri's face twisted. "A story," Yes. Miyu looked like she might be sick. Maria's voice was flat. You have been concealing identity contamination since your recovery. Since before it. Her hand lowered toward her side. I did not stop her. Iri saw the movement. Maria. Maria did not look at her. Young master, are you a hostile entity occupying Aaron Stingray's body? The question was clinical. It hurt anyway. I'm a person who woke up here and chose not to die. That was not my question. No, I am not hostile to the family by default. By default. Yes. Her eyes narrowed. Did you kill Aaron Stingray? No. Can you prove that? No. The honest answer hit the room harder than a lie would have. Maria's fingers flexed. Miyu stood abruptly. He was dying. Everyone looked at her. She looked terrified of her own voice, but kept going. The body was already collapsing. Adam had failed. Genetic overcast was active. If he had not come to me, Aaron Stingray would be dead. Whoever he is now, he did not create the disease. Maria said, that does not prove he did not replace the original consciousness. No, Miyu said, it does not. Her face crumpled slightly at the admission. Then she looked at me. Did you choose me because you know? Yes. The answer nearly broke her. I wanted to soften it. I did not deserve to. I knew you could build Pandora. I knew you were important. I knew you were isolated. I came because I needed you to survive. Miyu's eyes shone. So I was a cure. At first. Her mouth tightened. At first. Yes. Iri's voice cut in. And me. I turned to her. I knew you mattered in the original route. I knew you should not be expelled. I knew your anger would make the Academy fear you and use that fear against you. You knew about Fallen. Some. My brother. The question struck like a blade. I held her gaze. I do not know enough to answer safely. She laughed once hollow. Safely for whom? For you. Do not. The word cracked. Do not decide what truth I can survive. There was no good answer. Only the truth. I have been doing that since I met you. Her face changed. Not surprise. Recognition, and the pain of confirming what she had already hated. Maria spoke. You used all of us. Yes. Miyu flinched. I continued because stopping there would make the answer cowardly. I used you because I woke inside a doomed villain, discovered the protagonist was dead, found evidence of other people like me moving through the world, and realized every person who should have been protected by the original route was exposed. I used knowledge because it was the only reason I was not already a corpse. I used fear because Aaron Stingray's name was the only shield I had that worked immediately. I used lies because the truth sounded exactly as impossible and contaminating as it sounds now. Maria's expression remained cold. And now you reveal it because Kain knows enough to call me the villain. If he exposes it first, he controls the frame. If I keep lying to the three people closest to the next root pressure, he can split us with one sentence. I looked at Miyu. I did not tell you because I thought it would protect you. Then I looked at Iri. I did not tell you because I thought you would reject everything I said afterward. Then Maria. I did not tell you because you might have killed me. Maria answered immediately. I still might. Yes. Iri looked at her. You would. Maria's eyes did not leave mine. If he is a hostile possession of the Stingray heir, my duty is clear. And if he is the only reason, we are not already being carved up by people like Kain. My duty becomes complicated. That is your answer. Yes. Iri gave a sharp, humorless laugh. At least everyone here is awful honestly now. Miyu sat again, staring at her hands. The room did not collapse. Not yet. That was more mercy than I expected. Kain's message still glowed on the wall. The villain is watching the wrong door. I forced the focus back to the immediate threat, because emotional ruin could wait only if we survived the next hour. Kain expects me to guard the obvious access paths, I said. He is trying to pull attention toward digital doors, physical observation, special class files. Wrong door means the real move is elsewhere. Iri wiped at her face angrily, though no tear had fallen. Where? Miyu, I said. She looked up slowly. What system would matter if not the files? She blinked through shock. Then her mind caught, because machines were still the language she could stand in. The root layer. Explain. The Academy does not just store files, it moves people. Schedules, dormitory assignments, lab access, counseling appointments, medical checks, sponsor interviews. If he cannot steal the class data directly, he can move people into situations. Maria's face hardened. Student routing. Iri looked toward the door. That means he can isolate someone. Adam V23 pulsed. Unscheduled route modification detected. Special class candidate, Iri. Destination, old lower gymnasium. Threat convergence rising. I stood. Too late. Iri stared at me. What? Your route just changed. I am standing here. Then someone else is using your schedule to create a version of you somewhere else. Miyu's hands flew across the tablet. He cloned her student route marker. Maria moved to the door. Purpose? I answered before Miyu did. To make cameras and administration believe Iri went somewhere she did not, either to frame her for something or to lure someone who thinks she is there. Iri's face went cold. Leon? Maybe. Miyu shook her head. No, the route is tied to special class access. The target is not Leon, it is the class itself. Then the lower gymnasium alarm triggered. Not fire. Not breach. Medical emergency. A student had been found injured. Registered last nearby route marker, Iri. For 1 second, none of us spoke. Then Iri said, I did not. I know, I said. The speed of the answer mattered. Her face changed. Not trust, but something adjacent born under pressure. Maria said, if official security reaches her first, she is contained again. They will use the observation history, Miyu said. They will say she was already violent. Kain's message sat on the wall behind us like a smile. Wrong door. He had not needed to beat the special class in its room. He needed to make the Academy remove one of its anchors while we argued over truth. I looked at Iri. Stay with Maria. No. This is not optional. If someone is using my name, I am coming. If you appear at the scene before we control the record, you confirm the frame. Her fist shook. I hate this. Yes. Do not talk like that makes it easier. It does not. Miyu stood. I can freeze her current presence in this room using the lab logs. Maria said do it. Miyu hesitated. Those logs will expose that we were discussing restricted matters. I looked at the message on the wall. The villain is watching the wrong door. Kain thought I would protect secrecy over speed. He might have been right an hour ago. Not now. Release enough to prove she was here, I said. Maria turned toward me. That may expose your confession. Then cut the audio and preserve physical presence, biometric timestamps, and device proximity. If they demand audio later, we fight then. Miyu moved. Iri looked at me. You are protecting me even though I know what you are. I was protecting you before you knew. That is worse. Yes. She looked away. Do not lose the proof. I do not intend to. Maria and I left at speed. This time, there was no point pretending we were not moving urgently. The Academy had already begun to react. Security drones shifted toward lower routes. Student alerts were being suppressed, which meant administration wanted containment before rumor. Benedict called twice. I ignored him once and answered the second time because he would keep being useful if he stayed frightened. What happened? He asked. Someone cloned Iri's root marker and tied her to an injury. Silence. Then Benedict said, that is impossible. I dislike that word. If this becomes official before you produce counterproof, she is finished. Yes. You have counterproof. Miyu is building it. That sentence is doing a lot of work. Your job is to delay administrative conclusion. Hell. Procedure. He laughed once bitter. Now you like procedure. I like weapons pointed the correct way. What authority am I using? Concern over false root marker vulnerability after observation intrusion. That exposes our previous issue. It is already exposed to whoever matters. Benedict went quiet. Then you are changing posture. Yes. Why? Because secrecy just became more useful to our enemy than to us. The line went quiet. I will delay. Good. Aaron. What? If this is a direct attack on your class, the family will move. Let them prepare, do not let them act yet. That is a dangerous distinction. Most useful ones are. Maria and I reached the lower gymnasium before official security finished sealing the wing. The old gym was one of those academy spaces kept for history, not efficiency. Reinforced floor, outdated combat frames, low lights, too many dead camera angles because no one important had trained there in years. Perfect for a vol scene. A student lay near the center mat, breathing but unconscious, one arm twisted badly. Not Leon, not Kain. A second-year support candidate from Valence-affiliated programs, valuable enough to cause trouble, not valuable enough to start a war by himself. A planted injury. No blood trail. No signs of serious struggle. Too neat. Maria scanned the room. Sedated first, injured after. I looked at the upper camera. Footage. Looped. Of course. A security officer entered behind us. Young Master Aaron, this is an active medical scene. Then why are you walking instead of treating him? The officer stopped. Maria moved to the injured student and deployed a portable stabilizer. I watched the floor. The attacker wanted Iri tied here through root marker, not physical evidence. That meant physical evidence either did not exist or pointed elsewhere. I crouched beside the mat. There, a mark almost hidden under the edge seam. Not a footprint. A maintenance hatch scuff. The same escape logic as the service bridge. Kain or someone using Kain's methods had entered from below. The security officer spoke again, more carefully. Administration has been informed that Iri was scheduled through this area. Administration was informed falsely. That remains to be verified. I looked at him. He paled. Choose the next sentence carefully. He swallowed. Understood. Maria said victim is stable, injury is painful but not life-threatening, sedative present. Type. Fast metabolic, hard to trace after an hour. So we have less than an hour. Yes. I stood. Kain's move had several layers. Frame Iri. Force special class to expose private logs. Make me choose between protecting my secret and protecting her. Use a sedative that decayed quickly. Tie the incident to Valence enough to make Benedict stall, but not enough to prove corporate direction. Push the academy into official action before we could control the record. It was elegant. I hated that. The medical team arrived. I stepped back but did not leave. My device chimed. Miyu. I have proof Iri was in the lab at the injury window. I also found the cloned root marker source. It passed through Kain's residential wing, but not his room. It used a neighboring inactive room assigned to no one. A second message followed. Someone is in that room now. I looked at Maria. She had received it too. We moved without speaking. The inactive room sat in residential wing C, 2 floors above Kain's assigned dorm. Officially unused due to climate control failure. Unofficially perfect. A dead room with enough old wiring to borrow roots and enough administrative neglect to disappear inside. Maria opened the door silently. The room was empty. Not surprising. The terminal was not. A portable interface sat on the floor, connected to the wall behind a removed panel. It was still warm. Miyu's voice came through the comm. "Do not disconnect it." I looked at the terminal display. One line remained before the system locked. "Villain, if you are reading this, you are still late." Iri's route marker was only the first correction. Maria read it over my shoulder. "Correction." "Yes." "What does that mean?" "A correction force in the world. A hidden reader trying to restore or control the plot. A person who thought the villain surviving was in error. Maybe all three." The terminal pulsed. Miyu shouted, "Move back." Maria grabbed my arm and pulled. The terminal burned itself from the inside, not explosively, but with enough heat to melt the storage core into useless slag. Smoke curled into the room. I stared at the dead device. Kain had not run. Kain had not hidden. Kain had left me a message. That meant either he wanted me chasing him, or he was not the only one. My comm opened again. Iri's voice this time. "Aaron." She used my name without the title. "What?" Kain just entered the special class lab. The room tilted around the sentence. Maria's face hardened. "Miyu." "In the lab," I said. Iri's voice sharpened. "I am with her." "Useful?" "Dangerous?" "Both." Kain's message in the inactive room was not the attack. It was the wrong door again. The real move had returned to the class while I chased the frame. This time I ran. The special class lab was never supposed to become a fortress. That was my failure. I had treated it as a controlled room, a place where I could gather variables, watch reactions, build traps, train pressure, and make the route move through lines I could understand. I had forgotten the oldest rule of rooms. Anything you build to contain danger can also contain the people you are trying to protect. By the time Maria and I reached the west stairwell, Miyu had sealed the lab from inside. That meant Kain was in there with them. Or someone wearing his shape. The corridor outside the lab had already locked down under an emergency contamination flag. Not fire, not intrusion, contamination. Clever again. Security would hesitate before opening a sealed technical room if the system claimed volatile module material had been exposed. Academy staff would wait for specialist clearance. Observers would gather logs. Precious minutes would die politely. Miyu's voice came through my comm in broken fragments. Door sealed. He triggered the contamination protocol from inside. I can hold the inner systems, but he has a physical key on the auxiliary panel. Iri's voice cut in. He is standing by the north bench. He has something in his hand. Kain spoke next, not through the comm, but loud enough that Miyu's channel caught him. "You already told him." Iri answered, "Told him what?" "That he is not the only one who knows how the story goes." Maria reached the lab door and scanned the seal. Contamination lock is false, but the emergency bolts are real. "Can you open it?" "With force." "How long?" "Too long if he wants hostages." Inside, Miyu said, "Do not call us that." Afraid but angry. I touched the door. "Kain." A pause. Then his voice came through the room speaker. "Aaron Stingray. Not young master. Not villain. Name now." "Interesting." "You have my attention," I said. "I had it before. You were just watching the wrong doors. I am watching this one. Now, yes." Maria's fingers moved across the access panel beside me, carefully enough that the system would not feel the attack yet. I kept talking. "You framed Iri badly. I framed her well enough to move you. You exposed your root methods. You exposed your secret." That stopped Maria's fingers for half a second. Inside the lab, silence snapped tight. Kain laughed softly. Ah, you did tell them. Good, that saves time. I felt the pieces shift. He had expected the confession, or at least hoped to force it. The frame, the message, the lab return, all of it had one purpose: push my hidden truth into the open inside the special class. Make the people I gathered question the hand gathering them. Turn the root anchors against the replacement center. Not a physical attack first. A narrative attack. The word fit whether I liked it or not. I said, "You are not Kain Velder." Inside, a short silence. Then, "Neither are you Aaron Stingray." Miyu's breath caught. Iri muttered something too low to hear. Maria resumed working. I kept my voice calm. Kain's body. Alive, mind close enough, does it matter? Yes. Why? Because you want a moral line. You woke up in a corporate monster and started collecting main characters before the Academy could breathe. The words were meant to hit the room behind him more than me. I let them. Then I answered. You are sloppy when angry. The silence told me I had cut somewhere soft. Readers hate being read. You used shade as a cautionary tale, I said. Moved smaller, avoided obvious treasures, touched heavenly weight pendulum, then withdrew when the path became risky. You thought that made you patient. Then I built a class around the people you wanted and you rushed. Kain's voice hardened. You do not know what I want. No, but I know what you are afraid of. And what is that? Being reduced to a side character again. Silence. There. Not proof. A wound. I pressed it because I had no gentler tool that would open the door in time. You did not choose Kain because he was important. You chose him because he let you move unseen. Then I made unseen movement harder. I gathered Miyu. I reached Iri. I survived Aaron's death route. I became visible enough that the story had to look at me. That is what offends you. Kain laughed, but it came wrong. Center, you think the story chose you. No, I think the story is desperate. That line did not only hit him. It hit me too. Inside the lab, Iri said, keep him talking. Miyu whispered, I am trying to override the auxiliary key. Kain's voice snapped toward them. Do not touch that panel. A sound followed, movement, metal against floor. Iri's voice turned dangerous. Point that at her again and lose the hand. Kain said, you do not even know what he has done to you. I know what you are doing right now. You think that is enough. For the hand, yes. Maria's mouth almost moved. No time for amusement. I said, Kain, if you wanted to kill them, you would have done it before I arrived. You want an audience, use it. He breathed through the speaker. You are not the hero. No. You are not even a good replacement. I know. You should have stayed out of the route. I tried. The answer angered him more than denial would have. No, you took Pandora. You took Miyu. You took Shade's death and turned it into authority. Then you reached Iri before she could become what she was supposed to become. The room behind the door was very still. Iri's voice came low. What was I supposed to become? Kain seized the opening. Ask him about your brother, Kain said. Ask him what he already decided you were allowed to know. The knife meant for Iri. Not a lie. Worse. A truth placed in the wrong hand. Iri said, Aaron. One word. Not a demand yet. A warning that the next answer mattered. I could not see her face. Maybe that helped. Iri, I said, I know there are things around your brother that matter. I do not know enough to give you the truth without risking giving you the wrong target. Kain laughed. Beautiful, he hides control inside caution. Yes, I said. He stopped. Yes. Yes, I have done that repeatedly. I decide what people can know when they can act, how much danger is acceptable, and which truth will move them too early. That is not heroism. It is control. It is also why you are locked in that room trying to turn them against me instead of walking through the academy unnoticed. Kain's voice sharpened. You think admission absolves you. No, it saves time. Inside the lab, Miyu said softly, I am in. The auxiliary panel blinked beside Maria. She looked at me. 1 second. Maybe less. I kept Kain focused. You called yourself a correction, I said. A pause. I did not. The terminal did. The terminal told you what you needed to understand. Then understand this. The original root is gone. Shade is dead. Miyu is no longer hidden in Sector E. Iri is not alone in a counseling room. Benedict is not moving without counterweight. Whatever story you thought you were correcting no longer exists. Kain's voice dropped. Then we write a better one. There. The motive. Not survival alone. Authorship. The most dangerous sickness a reader can carry into a living world. Maria opened the door. I moved first. The lab was exactly wrong. Miyu crouched behind the central station, one hand on the auxiliary override, face pale with concentration. Iri stood between her and Kain, blood from yesterday's bruise reopened at her lip, practice baton in one hand, the other raised defensively. Kain stood near the north bench holding a compact device shaped like a module injector, not pointed at Miyu now, but close enough that he could threaten the equipment or himself. His face looked calmer than it should have. That meant he still had a plan. Maria entered behind me. Kain smiled. There he is. I looked at the injector. What is that? Miyu answered before him. Improvised module destabilizer, crude, dangerous. If he triggers it near the resonance simulator, it could destroy the captured command records. Could it hurt people? Yes. Kain shrugged. Not the plan. I dislike plans that require trusting you. You should, I learned from you. Iri's grip tightened. Kain looked at her. You see, he does not deny what he is. He just makes himself necessary before anyone can object. Iri said nothing. That worried me more than shouting would have. Kain continued, you want Stingray destroyed. He will give you access, hunger, and protection shaped like debt. That is not rescue. That is elegant ownership. The words were precise because they were partially true. I did not interrupt. Miyu stared at the floor. Kain turned toward her. And you? He knew what praise would do to you before he respected who you were. Every task proves which button makes you move. Miyu flinched. Again, truth used like shrapnel. Maria stepped forward. Kain Velder lowered the device. He smiled. Maria is the funniest one. A weapon told it is trusted because it remains useful. Maria's face did not change. But her silence changed by a degree. Kain looked back at me. You built a class out of vulnerabilities and called it protection. Yes, I said. The room stilled. Iri's eyes moved to me. Miyu looked up. Maria did not. I said it again, because the first time might have sounded like tactics. Yes, I did. Kain's smile faltered. I built this because Miyu was isolated, Iri was exposed, Maria was suspicious, Benedict was ambitious, the academy was compromised, and I did not know how to keep any of you safe without pulling you close enough to control. I told myself necessity made that cleaner. It did not. Iri's face shifted. Miyu's eyes widened. Maria finally looked at me. I continued, you are right about many things. That is why you are dangerous, but you made one mistake. Kain's fingers tightened around the injector. What? You think exposing my control gives you control? Iri moved first. Not at Kain. At the bench. She kicked the rolling equipment cart hard enough that it slammed into the north station and forced Kain to shift his balance away from the resonance simulator. At the same time, Miyu triggered the auxiliary field she had been quietly building under the floor grid. Not a trap I ordered. Hers. A localized stabilizer pulse that locked the destabilizer's output channel for half a second. Half a second was enough. Maria crossed the distance like a line drawn by a machine and broke Kain's wrist before the injector could fire. I used Cloud Spider only to catch the falling device, threads wrapping the casing without cutting through it. Clean. Vast. No death. Kain hit the floor with Maria's knee between his shoulder blades. Iri stood over him, breathing hard. Miyu clutched the console, shaking but upright. Kain laughed through pain. You think this proves they chose you? No, I said. I stepped closer and crouched where he could see me. It proves they can act without waiting for me. His smile died. That mattered more than the capture. Maria restrained him properly this time, stripping devices, collar, hidden sleeve layers, tooth transmitter, shoe chip, and a thread-thin implant behind his ear that made Miyu go pale with technical disgust. That is not Academy hardware, she whispered. Can you preserve it? Yes. Do it. Kain looked at her. You still obey him. Miyu's hands trembled. Then she said, I am preserving evidence because I want answers. Iri crouched in front of him next. You said he knows about my brother. Kain's eyes flicked toward me. Iri caught it. No, look at me. He did. If you use him to pull my chain again, I will break something Maria cannot put back politely. Maria said, do not threaten restrained prisoners. Iri did not look away. Then do not restrain people I still need to threaten. Miyu whispered, that is not how rules work. Iri said, I am learning selectively. Kain's expression twisted. You are all insane. I almost smiled. Almost. Then Atom V23 pulsed. Hostile root actor contained. Central root anchor stabilized. Correction vector unresolved. Unresolved. The system never let a wound close cleanly. Kain was not the end. Maybe not even the source. Just the first careful player we had managed to catch. I looked at him. Who else? He closed his mouth. Maria tightened the restraint. I raised a hand. No. She stopped. Kain smiled faintly. Still pretending to be better. No, I'm deciding which ugliness helps. He did not like that answer. That made it useful. We will not interrogate him here, I said. Iri snapped toward me. What? We have evidence, a prisoner, a compromised academy, and 3 people in this room whose trust I damaged badly enough before breakfast. I will not add torture to the list because he wants me to prove his speech correct. Maria looked at me for a long second. Then nodded. Miyu let out a breath. Iri looked furious. But she did not argue. That restraint cost her. I saw it. Maybe that was the point of today. Not that they trusted me. They did not cleanly, maybe not ever. The point was that when the hidden player tried to turn my methods into his weapon, the class did not break. It bent. It hit back. It acted. Not because I controlled every hand. Because each of them chose a move I had not fully authored. That should have relieved me. Instead, it frightened me in a new way. People who can choose can also leave. People who can act without me, can judge me without needing my permission. That was what made them more than assets. That was why protecting them would always hurt more than controlling them. Kain was taken to a secure holding room under Maria's supervision and Benedict's emergency administrative seal. The Academy tried to claim jurisdiction within 20 minutes. Stingray family channels demanded a classified report within 30. Valence denied any link within 40, which told me they knew enough to be afraid and not enough to be central. By the end of the hour, Trinity Academy looked normal from the outside. Students crossed courtyards. Classes resumed. Official screens displayed schedule updates and sponsor notices. No one announced that the special class had captured a hidden reader in a stolen student body after he tried to collapse the group from the inside, using truths I had been too afraid to speak. Institutions are very good at continuing. People are worse at it. The 4 of us returned to the lab after Kain was removed. No one sat at first. The room still smelled faintly of burnt circuitry and fear. Miyu placed the preserved implant container on the table with too much care. Iri stood near the wall, arms crossed. Maria remained by the door. I stood across from them, and for the first time since becoming Aaron Stingray, I had no mask strong enough to make the next conversation safe. So I did not pretend it was. "You can ask," I said. Miyu's voice came first. "What was my future supposed to be?" I exhaled slowly. "In the route I knew, you became central to the protagonist's growth. Your work changed his compatibility, his equipment, his survival path. You were not just a technician. You were one of the reasons he could keep moving." She looked down. Was I happy? I closed my eyes for half a second. What a cruel question. Not what powers did I make. Not how famous did I become. Was I happy? I do not know enough to answer without lying. She nodded as if she expected that. It hurt anyway. Iri spoke next. "And me. You were important, strong, angry for reasons that mattered, the kind of person the story needed because not every shield is gentle. My brother. I do not have the full truth. Do you have part of it?" "Yes." "Tell me." Maria's gaze moved to me. Miyu looked afraid for both of us. I said, "Your search is connected to Stingray more deeply than ordinary Academy rumor. If you go directly at the family with what you know now, you will be redirected, buried, or used. That is why I did not answer before." Iri's face hardened. "That is not enough." "No." "Then give me more. If I give you names without proof, your anger will choose the shortest path. You do not know that. I watched you nearly lose your future over an insult designed to make you move." She stepped forward. "And I watched you build a whole class around deciding when other people are allowed to move." The line hit clean. I accepted it. "Yes." Her hands shook. "I hate you." "I know." "No, you do not. You think everything is a variable, even hate." "I used to." She stared at me. "And now?" "Now it is harder to file away." That was not enough. But it was true. Iri looked away, breathing through anger. Miyu said quietly, "Can we make a rule?" I almost laughed at the absurdity of her saying that after everything. "What rule?" "If something is about our own future, you cannot hide it forever. You can delay if there is immediate danger, but you have to say what kind of danger, not just decide silently." Iri looked at her. Maria did too. Miyu shrank under the attention but kept going. "And if you use us as bait, we know before, not after before." "That may limit tactical flexibility," Maria said. Miyu looked at her. "I know." Maria went silent. Iri said, "I agree." Of course she did. Maria looked at me. "This would constrain your ability to act alone." "Yes." "Do you accept?" Every instinct Aaron Stingray's body had inherited said no. Control survives by staying centralized. Information moves downward only when necessary. Useful people are protected by restricting their choices before they make expensive ones. That was the logic of family, corporation, academy, and villain. It had kept me alive. It had also handed Kain half his weapon. "I accept," I said. Miyu blinked. Iri looked suspicious. Maria's expression softened by almost nothing. "Too fast," Iri said. "You wanted me to argue." "Yes." "I can retract and argue if it helps." "Do not be annoying." "I am told I am naturally gifted." Miyu made another tiny laugh, then covered her mouth as if laughter after a crisis was illegal. The room changed. Not healed. Not safe. Changed. Atom V23 pulsed again. Class internal pact registered. Trust metric unstable. Root resilience increased. I stared at the notification. Unstable trust. That was probably the most honest thing the system had ever told me. Benedict arrived shortly after, because disasters attracted him like blood attracted sharks with family crests. He entered, saw our faces, and stopped. "What happened in here?" Iri said, "Your brother admitted he is a body-snatching story freak." Benedict stared at her. Miyu made a strangled sound. Maria closed her eyes. I looked at Iri. That was perhaps not the ideal phrasing. You told me not to hide things forever. I said from us, not from everyone with a pulse in a chair. Benedict looked at me slowly. Aaron? Yes. Why does the fallen girl think you are a body-snatching story freak? I considered several answers. None improved the situation. Because she is imprecise under emotional strain. I'm extremely precise, Iri said. No, Miyu said weakly, you skipped context. Benedict looked like he wanted to sit down but did not trust any chair in the room. Maria spoke before the conversation could become unrecoverable. Kain appears to be suffering from identity-level anomalous interference similar to the Shade Wells case. Young Master Aaron has disclosed that he has relevant knowledge regarding such anomalies. Iri snorted. That is one way to say it. Benedict stared at Maria. Then at me. For once, his polish cracked almost completely. What did you do? I met his eyes. Survived. He looked furious, confused, and afraid in quick succession. Then the Stingray in him reassembled the mask. This conversation cannot happen casually. It is not happening casually. It is happening after an attack. Does the family know? No. Maria said not fully. Benedict looked at her. You knew. I suspected. Of course you did. He ran a hand through his hair, the least controlled gesture I had ever seen from him. If this reaches the wrong channel, they will not debate ethics. They will quarantine you, dissect Kain, pressure Miyu, bind Iri's status to the incident, and classify the special class as contaminated. That was accurate. Very accurate. Useful Benedict was one of the worst people to underestimate. So we do not let it reach the wrong channel, I said. He laughed in disbelief. You confessed to impossible identity contamination in a room full of students, and your plan is administrative discretion. No, my plan is controlled evidence, compartmentalized truth, and an enemy prisoner who proves the anomaly is broader than me. Benedict looked at Kain's preserved implant container. You captured proof. Miyu preserved proof. He looked at her. She shrank. She also built the override that stopped the destabilizer, I said. Miyu whispered, the field was unstable. It worked. Barely. Barely is a kind of working recognized by survivors. Benedict looked from her to Iri to Maria, then back to me. You have turned this class into a political bomb. No, Kain tried to. We prevented detonation. For now. Yes. He went quiet. Then he said the most brotherly thing he had ever said to me, which was also a threat. You are going to get all of us killed. Possibly. That was not an invitation to agree. I know. Benedict looked at the others. And all of you are staying. Miyu did not answer first. Iri did. For now. Benedict almost smiled. That sounds unwise. Iri shrugged. Most true things around here do. Miyu looked at the implant container. If Kain is like Shade, then there may be more. If there are more, hiding separately is worse. Maria said, my duty requires containment until the threat can be classified. Benedict looked at me. And you? I looked at the special classroom, the damaged console, the scuffed floor, the people who now knew enough to destroy me and had not yet chosen to. I started by trying to protect the story, I said. That is no longer sufficient. Benedict frowned. What does that mean? It means the story is not sacred, the people in it are. No one spoke. The line was too honest for the room. I almost wanted to take it back. I did not. Benedict looked away first. Disgustingly heroic sentiment from someone with your face. I am working through an identity problem. Iri groaned. Do not joke about that. Miyu nodded firmly. I agree, it is unsettling. Maria said nothing, but she did not look away. The aftermath became a different kind of battle. Kain was moved to a secure medical isolation room under a contamination classification that sounded technical enough to bore most administrators and serious enough to stop casual access. Miyu preserved the implant and destabilizer. Maria locked down physical records. Benedict delayed family escalation by framing the incident as a preliminary academy security breach connected to prior system irregularities, which was true, incomplete, and therefore useful. I prepared the report no one would read fully until it was too late to stop the direction I wanted. No hidden transmigrator language. No story confession. No impossible metaphysics. Just facts arranged like knives in a drawer. A student used unauthorized privacy hardware. A student accessed restricted root-linked records. A student attempted to manipulate special class internal systems. A student possessed non-academy neural hardware inconsistent with registered medical history. A student's behavior demonstrated knowledge of sealed incidents, including shade wells and blood wolves. Conclusion: broader security anomaly, special class containment justified, expanded authority required. The family would see control. The academy would see liability. Benedict would see a trap he was now inside. Maria would see the missing center. Miyu and Iri would know what had been omitted. That was the new pack's first test. Not full truth to everyone. Fuller truth to those inside the room. Maybe that was how a villain learned not to become the system's best tool. Not by refusing to use tools. By letting the people beside him know when they were being turned into one. Late that night, I went alone to the observation deck above Trinity's central courtyard. Alone was a technical term. Maria was probably within 30 meters. Iri had likely ignored instructions and found a vantage point somewhere she could pretend was coincidence. Miyu was asleep because I had ordered her terminal access locked for 6 hours, and she had been too exhausted to be properly angry. The academy below looked peaceful. It was not. It was never going to be. My interface pulsed one more time. Main story part 1, stabilization threshold reached. Root center provisional. Correction vector active. Additional hostile actors probable. Special class authority expanded. I read the messages twice. Root center provisional. Not confirmed. Not safe. Provisional. The world had not crowned me protagonist. It had not forgiven the villain. It had not decided I was worthy. It had simply found a temporary center because the original one was dead and the cast had not collapsed yet. A colder person would have called that victory. I could still become colder. That was what frightened me. The door behind me opened. I did not turn. I told you to sleep, Miyu. It is not Miyu. Iri's voice. I should have expected that. She stepped beside me but kept a careful distance. For a while, neither of us spoke. Then she said, I still hate you. I assumed. I hate that you knew things about me. Yes. I hate that Kain was right about some of it. Yes. I hate that you helped anyway. That one took longer to answer. So do I sometimes. She looked at me. The city light cut across her face, catching the bruise near her lip and the anger behind her eyes. You hate helping. No, I hate when the right action looks indistinguishable from possession. She looked back at the courtyard. That sounded too honest. I am tired. Good makes you less polished. That is not a compliment. It was not meant to be. A faint echo of my own words. I deserved that. She leaned against the railing. About my brother. I know. Not tonight. I looked at her. Her hands gripped the rail hard enough to whiten her knuckles. If I ask now, I will want to run straight at whatever you say. And I hate that you know that, but I hate more that it is true. That was growth. Painful growth. The kind that did not feel like victory to the person living it. When you ask, I said, I will tell you what I know and what I only suspect. No more deciding silently. No more deciding silently. She nodded once. Then she left without another word. A minute later, Maria stepped from the shadow near the door. You allowed her to leave unescorted. She wanted to feel like the choice mattered. And if Kain has allies watching, you are here, which means 2 of your drones are already tracking the corridor. Maria almost smiled. Almost. You know me too well. I know loaded guns. She came to stand where Iri had been. You told them. Yes. Not everything. No. But enough that they could destroy you. Yes. Was that strategy? I watched the courtyard lights. At first. And after. I do not know. Maria accepted that more easily than a polished answer. After a long silence, she said, I have not reported the identity anomaly to the family. I know. You should not assume that means loyalty to you. I do not. It means I believe premature disclosure would create more danger than containment. Useful phrasing. It worked when you used it. I looked at her. For a moment, Maria's face carried something almost like dry irritation. Then it vanished. She continued, if your condition worsens, if Kain's evidence suggests you are a spreading contamination, or if your choices endanger the family beyond containment, I will act. I know. And if the family endangers the class to hide liability, I may delay acting long enough for you to respond. That was not a promise. From Maria, it was nearly a rebellion. Thank you, I said. She looked uncomfortable with the words. Do not make it sentimental. I would never. You often do, accidentally. That almost made me laugh. Almost. The night deepened over Trinity. Below us, the academy lights kept shining, pretending the institution was clean. Somewhere inside its sealed medical wing, Kain Velder carried another reader's mind, another set of memories, another argument about how this world should be written. Somewhere beyond him, the correction vector remained active. Maybe a person, maybe a faction, maybe a mechanism none of us understood. The system did not say. It never gave enough. Only enough to move. The next morning, the special class became official. Not celebrated. Not trusted. Official. Trinity announced it as an experimental high-risk talent development program under Stingray sponsorship and academy oversight. The language was sterile enough to hide the blood still drying underneath it. Students whispered. Sponsors recalculated. Faculty pretended not to be afraid of the authority shift. Benedict stood beside me during the announcement looking like a man who had discovered he was both trapped and promoted. Miyu stood behind us, trying not to disappear. Iri stood beside her, trying not to start a fight with everyone who looked too long. Maria stood at my shoulder, as always. The academy saw corporate prince expanding influence. The family saw a useful containment structure. The hidden players, if they were watching, saw a warning. The class itself knew the truth was uglier. We were not united by friendship. Not yet. We were united by exposure, danger, and the knowledge that the old root had died before any of us were ready. When the announcement ended, Benedict leaned close enough to speak without the microphones catching it. You realize this makes you responsible for every disaster they cause. I know. And every disaster that comes for them. I know. You sound calm. I have been practicing. He looked at the students watching us. Do you have any idea how many people will want this class to fail? Yes. No, Aaron, you do not. You think in monsters and anomalies. I think in committees. Trust me, committees are slower but more vindictive. That may be the most useful thing you have ever said. I hate that it is advice. So do I. Across the hall, Kain's absence created a hole no one else understood. His official status was medical quarantine. His real status was prisoner, evidence, and question mark. I did not know whether he would talk. I did not know whether the mind inside him considered itself enemy, correction, savior, or author. I did not know whether more hidden readers had already seen the class announcement and begun rewriting their plans. I only knew the game had changed. The villain was visible now. The class existed. The original protagonist was not coming back to take the center from me. That meant every future route would approach us differently. As students began to disperse, Miyu stepped closer. People are staring. Yes. I hate it. I know. Can I go back to the lab? After the reception. There is a reception. Unfortunately. She looked betrayed. Iri said, "Can we fight the reception?" No. Can we threaten it? No. Can we leave? No. Miyu whispered, "This class has too many rules." I looked at them both. New rule: survive the reception without creating a diplomatic incident. Iri frowned. What counts as diplomatic? Benedict muttered, "We are doomed." For a moment, the absurdity of it almost felt normal. Then Adam V23 pulsed. Incoming external message. Unknown origin. No root trace. My interface opened before I could block it. A single line appeared. Kain was not the correction. He was the warning. I stopped moving. Maria noticed first. Then Miyu. Then Iri. Benedict followed my gaze without seeing the message and went pale anyway, because by now he had learned that when Aaron's Stingray went still, something expensive was about to break. I closed the interface. Too late to unread it. Kain was not the correction. He was the warning. I looked out over Trinity Academy at the students, the sponsors, the glass walls, the drones, the polished lies, and the fragile class now standing under my name. The story had accepted a new baseline. It had not accepted peace. The first hidden player we captured had not been the hand correcting the route. He had been a flare sent ahead of something larger, maybe another reader, maybe a group, maybe the world itself refusing to let a villain inherit the center without punishment. I did not know yet. But I knew one thing with absolute clarity. I could no longer save these people by pretending I was outside their story. I could not save them by owning the board either. From now on, every step would have to be taken with the people I had gathered, not merely around them. That sounded noble. In practice, it meant more arguments, more risk, more secrets breaking at the worst possible time, and more chances for the mask of Aaron's Stingray to become the truth if I reached for fear too quickly. Miyu's voice was small beside me. What happened? I looked at her, then at Iri, then at Maria and Benedict. The old instinct said to hide the message until I understood it. The new rule said otherwise. So I told them. Kain was a warning. Iri's eyes sharpened. From who? I do not know. Benedict exhaled. I am beginning to miss ordinary family politics. Maria said, next action. The old question returned. How do we move? Not how do I win. How do we move? I looked at the reception hall doors opening ahead of us, full of smiling sponsors and predators wearing academy badges. We attend, I said. Miyu looked horrified. Iri looked offended. Benedict looked like he wanted to resign from blood relation. Maria looked almost approving. I continued, we smile where necessary. We listen more than we speak. We find out who already knows the class matters. We let them think the warning frightened us into caution. Iri's mouth curved. And underneath? Underneath, we prepare for whoever sent it. Miyu swallowed. Together. I held the word carefully before answering. Yes. No system message appeared. No achievement unlocked. No route confirmation. Just the five of us standing at the threshold of a room full of knives, with the original story dead behind us and something unknown moving ahead. For once, the system did not need to tell me what had changed. I could feel it in the way Miyu stepped forward despite her fear. In the way Iri stayed close without pretending obedience. In the way Maria watched the exits and the family channels at the same time. In the way Benedict muttered one last complaint and followed anyway. And in the way I, Aaron Stingray, villain, imposter, sponsor, survivor, no longer walked into the next scene alone. That was not redemption. Not yet. It was only the beginning of a more dangerous kind of responsibility. But in a world where the protagonist was dead, the root was broken, and the correction had finally noticed us, beginning was enough to be terrifying. So I smiled the way Aaron Stingray was supposed to smile. Cold, elegant, unforgiving. The sponsors waiting beyond the doors saw the villain entering his academy. The people beside me knew better. Or at least, they knew the lie was no longer the whole truth. For now, that would have to be enough. The first hand reached for me before I crossed the room. A sponsor with polished cufflinks congratulated me on the special class, visionary, timely, a natural extension of Stingray responsibility toward the city's future. Every word sounded like a glove hiding fingerprints. I took his hand. Responsibility is often recognized after people fail to prevent the need for it, I said. His smile paused. Benedict made a small choking sound behind me. Iri leaned closer to Miyu and whispered, not quietly enough, "Does he always do that?" Miyu whispered back, "Yes." Maria's voice entered my private channel. 3 observers on the upper balcony. One has looked at Miyu twice, Iri once, and you not at all. Mark him. Already done. That saved time. The room moved around us. Polite greetings, hidden offers, questions disguised as compliments, concern disguised as support. Everyone wanted to know whether the special class was a vanity project, a Stingray weapon, an academy liability, or a new power center. No one asked whether the students inside it were afraid. No one asked whether they had chosen it freely. That was the kind of omission this world called normal. I looked at Miyu. She stood stiffly beside a display of academy achievements, fingers gripping her tablet, eyes darting from face to face. Iri had placed herself half a step forward without being told, body angled between Miyu and the room. She would have hated anyone calling that protective. So I did not. Instead, I let the room see it. Sometimes people revealed themselves by what they tried to exploit. The sponsor released my hand. We look forward to seeing what your class produces, young Master Aaron. Produces. There it was again. The city's favorite verb for people. I smiled. So do I. But inside I corrected the sentence. Not produces. Becomes. That was the word I would have to remember when strategy became too easy, when fear worked too well, when the villain's mask solved a problem faster than trust could. The special class could not only be a net, it could not only be bait, it could not only be a replacement route built from my memory of a dead story. If I forgot that, Kain would be right. If I remembered it too late, the correction would not need to destroy us. I would do the work for it. So I walked deeper into the reception with the others close enough to argue, close enough to betray me, close enough to choose differently. That was the risk. That was the point.